Revered Swami Dept Maharaj, Medical Superintendent Ramakrishna Mission Charitable Hospital, Mumbai. Our dignitaries, Dr. Yatin Bhadakia ji, Dr. Rachna Vishwajit ji. Request all of you to please keep your mobile phones on silent mode or switch it off, please. Apakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupini Avatar Varishtaya Sri Ramakrishna Yati Namah. Pranam to Bhagwan Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Ma Sharda Devi, Swami Vivekananda. Pranams to revered Swamijis on the dais and in the auditorium. Namaskar to the dignitaries on the dais and all of you in the audience. We shall begin this special session on tuberculosis, CME, with traditional lighting of lamp and offering floral tribute to Holy Trio. May I request the dignitaries on the dais and the Swamijis to please make the offerings. Revered Swami Vivekananda ji may please take the lead. The Vedic chanting by Swami Chittishananda, Swami Sarvotkarananda and Swami Kalyanatmani.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hare Om Sahana Hotu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamassu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti 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 Hare Om. Channo mitra shamvarunah, channo bhavatvaryama, channa indro brihaspatihi, channo vishnurukrama, namo brahmane, namaste vayu, tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi, tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami, dhrutam vadishyami, satyam vadishyami, tanmamavatu. Tadvakkaram avatu, avatu mam, avatu vakkaram. Om Shanti 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 Hare Om. Bhadram karne vishnuyama deva, bhadram pashe makshabhiryajatra, thirayangai stushtruvagam sastanovi, veshema devahitam yadayu. Swasti na Indro Rudrashravah, Swasti na Purusha Vishwaveda, Swasti na Syaksho Arishtanemi, Swasti no Brahaspatir Dalatu. Om Shanti 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 Hare Om. Yaschandasam Shabho Vishwarupa, Chandobhyo Dyamrita Sambharuva. Samedro Medaya Smrunatu Amritasya Devadharano Bhuyasam Shariram Me Vicharshanam Yuva Me Madhumattama Karnabhyam Bhuri Vishwam Brahmana Koshosi Medaya Pika Chutam Me Gopaya. Om Shanti 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 Hare Om. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Swamijis. Thank you, doctors. We have assembled here today for this special CME for doctors on the occasion of Tuberculosis Day, organized by Ramakrishna Mission, Mumbai, in association with District Tuberculosis Office, Department of Health and Welfare, Khar, Mumbai. As you may be aware, Ramakrishna Mission is a branch center of the worldwide organization with its headquarters at Belur Math, Howrah, West Bengal. We have about 200 centers all over India and more than 100 centers in other countries. The organization, the twin organization of Ramakrishna Math and Ramakrishna Mission, was founded by none other than Swami Vivekananda. His motto, which he has given to all of us, Atmana Moksha Jagat Hitah, for the salvation of oneself and welfare of society. All the centers of the Ramakrishna Math and Ramakrishna Mission follow this motto in toto and serve the community. The Ramakrishna Mission Charitable Hospital, which we have here, works on a very different principle as compared to any other hospital. The patients who come here are considered as Yogi Narayanas, Yogi Narayanas. They are served with that attitude. Jiva is Shiva. See the Lord Shiva in the form of human beings. In addition to the hospital, Ramakrishna Mission, Bombay, we also have free coaching classes for needy students, Sharda coaching classes. We have a free reading room and library, which is open for more than 12 hours in a day, facilitate the students to come and study here. For people who do not have the facility at their residences. We have a huge library with books from all fields. We have a book sale department to spread Vedanta. These being the few activities from the mission side, we also have the Universal Temple of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother's Temple on the other side of 12th Road, which gives solace and peace of mind to thousands of people who keep visiting from morning till late night. With this brief introduction, I request Revered Swami Dayadipanand Maharaj to please take this session forward. Namaskar. Thank you.
Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. Offering my salutations at the feet of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, Ma Sharda Devi, Swami Vivekananda, I offer my love and respect to all the dignitaries who are here with us at Ramakrishna Mission, Mumbai. I also take this opportunity to convey my love and respect to all the doctors who have gathered here to attend this special CME, which is being organized on the occasion of World Tuberculosis Day. We all know April 10th we celebrate as World Tuberculosis Day all over the world. We as a scientific community who have a special love for humanity discover things with a scientific approach and deliver to the society which will benefit humanity at large. The infectious diseases, so-called communicable diseases. The other is non-communicable diseases. So when it comes to infectious diseases, a person who comes to hospital with a small viral infection, common bacterial infection, हाहाकार मच जाता है पेशेंट के फैमिली में, पेशेंट के फ्रेंड्स में, to some extent even in the healthcare providers. We all very well know if the infection is mild, no antibiotic, no antiviral drugs are required. Whereas a dreaded disease like tuberculosis, if somebody gets, how many really are going to take it serious? Still, people have that myth in the society. अगर किसी को टीबी होता है तो किसी को नहीं बोलना, keep it secret. We don't want to talk about it. So this being the scenario, we can very well understand how important it is for all the healthcare providers, mainly the doctors who are leading the team, to understand the seriousness and try to implement the things discovered by our scientists to make this humanity to live a better and happier life. With this theme, with this motto, we are celebrating World Tuberculosis Day all over the world. When it comes to India, yes, because of the population, the lifestyle, whatever we may call, still tuberculosis is very much rampant. At the same time, if proper treatment along with early diagnosis done, it's completely curable. Patient usually doesn't suffer or left behind with any physical, mental, emotional distress or disease. This we have seen and experienced. Our own monks serving the hospital in the registration counter, when they got diagnosed with tuberculosis, they took it very easy. ठीक है, hospital में रहते तो infection होता है, so they took their treatment perfectly all right. So why I'm giving this example? Some people start blaming. अरे कैसे मेरे को टीबी हो सकता है? So when we accept the things, understanding the scientific background, we can very well compare the dreaded disease called tuberculosis. So what I want to stress with this is, one is scientific knowledge, second thing is attitude, how we look at it. The treating community, so-called healthcare providers, along with the patient and patient family, if we all can together fight, we can very well have a wonderful control on this dreaded disease, tuberculosis. We have a team of doctors, experts in the field of tuberculosis. In a short notice, Dr. Dolakia, Etin Dolakia, who is a senior pulmonologist, when he proposed, we said, yes, we can arrange this. And our district tuberculosis officer and his team, they all joined together, and getting so many doctors for a CME in a short notice, they have successfully done it. So we have wonderful speakers who will be talking on various topics on tuberculosis. So I believe all the people who are gathered here will get a complete knowledge about managing a case with tuberculosis. To go ahead and share my little experience, how we are working here at Ramakrishna Mission as a medical superintendent, as a clinician, as a healthcare provider. Yes, I keep on telling, I'm a monk by passion. By profession, I'm a doctor. So when I say doctor, the responsibility is not just giving some medicine, so-called symptomatic treatment. I believe in educating. So with this idea, when we started educating, my field being diabetes, especially type 1 diabetes, प्रोफेशन के साथ जब पैशन मिल जाता है, आपका जो भी रुचि है उसके साथ जब जुनून ऐड होता है, what can happen? I can share with a small example. More than 300 type 1 diabetic children in a northern India, in a charitable hospital, living a healthy and normal life. Can you believe this? Not just normal, they are like yogis. If you don't believe, just go and visit Ramakrishna Mission Hospital, Haridwar, type 1 diabetes. You'll get. They are leading a life of a yogi, being type 1 diabetic. कोई गांव का नॉर्थ इंडिया में poor, illiterate. So what I want to stress is, this is what education. Previously I used to call it as diabetes self-management education. Now I call it as disease self-management education. Because we have given a mantra, बीमारी अनेक, इलाज एक, योग जीवन पद्धति. अगर हम योग जीवन पद्धति अपनाते हैं, सारा बीमारी को एक साथ लड़ सकते हैं. That's what we have tried to introduce, that healthy lunch which you all enjoyed, I suppose. Replace the processed food, the polished dal and rice, and make khichdi out of unpolished dal and the whole grain brown rice. Replace the fried items with fresh, tasty salad with sprouts. Replace so-called sweets, pakodas with nachni idli, chutney, sambar. You enjoyed your full plate of lunch. You will not feel sleepy. Your stomach is full. This is what right eating can do, and this is the way to fight all the lifestyle diseases. And when it comes to infectious disease, yes, it increases your immunity. The moment you have increased your immunity, you have done your job. So this was a brief thing which we tried to do for all the doctors to experience how important it is for us to take care of the patient as a whole. So when we started doing this in our holistic wellness clinic, we got results, and Dr. Dolokia also got interested and he joined us. A patient with tuberculosis along with diabetes, very difficult to manage. Fasting 300, HbA1c 12%, PP 500. He was taking his ATT for the last 2 years. He lives nearby Bandra. A very poor man, his wife, she comes, both of them are very sincere, suffering since 2 years with tuberculosis because of uncontrolled diabetes. Believe me, in 10 days, blood sugars were normal. He gained 4 kilos of his weight. So a person who lost his weight because of uncontrolled diabetes, HbA1c 12%, fasting 300, PP 500, gained 4 kilos of weight in just 10 days. After that, I sent the patient to Dr. Dolokia. He did the counseling. Yes, sir, test karao, this, then we'll go. So education. Nowadays, we don't treat a disease simple, only single disease. It's a complex. When we were medical students, we used to read syndrome. Now, every patient who comes to our clinic is having a syndrome. So that's where collective working, सब लोग मिलके काम करना कितना जरूरी है. A diabetologist, an endocrinologist, a pulmonologist, a neurophysician, all together working, providing the proper counseling support. So with this brief introduction based on my experience, we Ramakrishna Mission are here to support the wonderful program being run by our health department and our expertise. So before I go forward, I would like to present a small bouquet to dignitaries. I request Ratan Chaudhary ji to coordinate with our Swamiji, Swami Kshitishanand ji, Swami Sarvatanand ji. They will honor our speakers of the day with a small bouquet. Swami Kshitishanand ji to honor Dr. Etin Dolokia ji. Dr. Rachna, Dr. Parag Mehta, Dr. Mahesh Patil, Nitin Mahajan, Dr. Etin, we must be dignitaries. Should come. So before I speak with you. And हमारे दो काप दीजिए. So I had the responsibility of doing two things. One is keynote address and welcome address. So with this small bouquet. Oh, sorry. So love and namaskars. Greetings from Ramakrishna Mission for all the speakers, dignitaries, and my pranams to our monks for their holy presence and this wonderful chanting, lamp lighting. We are really delighted to be here in this Ramakrishna Mission Hospital campus, which already well begun is half done. We had a wonderful healthy lunch. Now we are going to have more food for thought. पेट पूजा के बाद थोड़ा मस्तिष्क का भी पूजा हो जाए, है ना? So we are really excited to learn all about tuberculosis so that we gain knowledge, we become more efficient in managing patients, and to be a great instrument to fight against this dreaded disease, tuberculosis. So our goal is to eliminate tuberculosis. What is that target they have given? Which year?
NT 25.
25.
Extended to 30.
Extended 30. That's why I was surprised. 25 तो मैं नहीं होगा तो बोलने वाला ही था. So thank you for that. So 25 को target रखे थे लेकिन extended to 30. 2030 तक हम सब लोग मिलके ट्यूबरक्लोसिस के साथ लड़ना है और उसको हराना है. So एक स्वास्थ्य देश, एक श्रेष्ठ देश का निर्माण करना है. And we have a wonderful Prime Minister who has a vision, Narendra Modi. And for the information of all, is a great devotee of Swami Vivekananda. So with this welcome note and keynote address about tuberculosis, a little about Swami Vivekananda. वो तो थोड़ा बोलना है टाइम. आपने सुना होगा एक शब्द आत्मनो मोक्षार्थम जगदिताय च. Ramakrishna Mission all over the world, more than 200 centers in India, more than 100 centers outside India. Outside India mainly it's Vedanta प्रचार. वहां पे लोगों के पास सब कुछ है, मन का शांति नहीं है. तो वहां पे हॉस्पिटल या सेवा कार्य का बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन उनको मन का शांति के लिए वेदांत प्रचार. Higher ideas for a peaceful life. Here in India, still we are struggling with a lot of daily issues. So seeing that, Ramakrishna Mission basically serves in the field of health and education. With the motto, Atmano Mokshartam Jagadhitaya. जैसे आपको बोला गया कि हर एक पेशेंट यहाँ आता है उसको हम रोगी नारायण. Is not just a patient for ourselves. जिस भगवान को मंदिर में पूजा करते हैं वही भगवान इस ह्यूमन फॉर्म में मेरे सामने आया है. How can I serve this Bhagavan, Rogi Narayan, to make him free from the disease or suffering? इसके जरिए भगवान का आशीर्वाद मेरे को मिलता है. जब निष्काम भाव से सेवा करते हैं और जो भी पेशेंट को हम देख रहे हैं उसको भगवान समझ के हम सेवा करते हैं, हमारा चित्त शुद्ध होता है। शरीर और मन जब तक शुद्ध नहीं है तब तक भले ही हम पवित्र आत्मा है उसका अनुभूति नहीं होता है। तो चित्त शुद्धि के जरिए we become a fit candidate to attain God, to realize God. That's what is moksha. Atmano mokshartham. As a monk of Ramakrishna mission, I am here to realize God and God alone. मोक्ष ही हमारा सन्यासी का प्रथम धर्म है। सन्यासी का कोई कर्म बंधन नहीं होता है। We should know all this. as a सनातन धर्मी, सन्यासी का कोई कर्म बंधन नहीं रहता है। He is free from all the responsibilities. फिर भी सन्यासी जो दूसरे लोग जिम्मेदारी लेके काम करते उससे ज्यादा करता है। This term was given by Swami Vivekananda. That was the unique contribution of Swami Vivekananda. Western science coupled with Vedanta, Brahmacharya as guiding motto. जब अपना चीज आता है हम अपना संयम रखते हैं। मेरे लिए I don't want, for others yes I want to help. जब ये भाव आ जाता है आप चित्त शुद्ध हो जाता है, आप अपना आत्मा में स्थिर हो जाते हैं। अहम ब्रह्मास्मि आत्मनो मोक्षार्थम, ये सन्यासी के लिए भी आदर्श है, गृहस्थ के लिए भी आदर्श है, क्योंकि श्री रामकृष्ण के बोले हैं। सो विद दिस मोटो वी आर ऑल हियर टू सर्व। बाय दिस क्या होता है? वी आर डूइंग गुड टू द वर्ल्ड। स्वामी विवेकानंद बोलते हैं apparently we are helping the world, in reality we are helping ourselves. स्वामी विवेकानंद बोलते हैं be happy, be proud that there is somebody to receive. अगर वो लेने वाला ही नहीं रहता आप किसको दोगे? So feeling blessed after serving, ये बहुत ही बड़ा फिलॉसफी है, तत्व है। भगवान श्री कृष्ण ने जो अर्जुन को पढ़ाया था भगवत गीता में, इन द फील्ड ऑफ बैटल, इन द फील्ड ऑफ वॉर, उसी को स्वामी विवेकानंद ने मॉडर्न टाइम्स में वेस्टर्न साइंस coupled with वेदांता, ब्रह्मचर्य एज गाइडिंग मोटो, ये जो आदर्श को लेके कर्म को कर्म योग के हिसाब से जब हम करेंगे, वी कैन गेट द पीस ऑफ माइंड। अंदर में शांति, बाहर में समृद्धि, अभ्युदय निश्रेयस। तो ये आदर्श को भी थोड़ा हमको याद रखना है, बिकॉज वी आर ऑल बिजी ऑलवेज रनिंग अबाउट। कैन हॉस्पिटल में जाना है, पेशेंट को देखना है, बहुत स्ट्रेस है ना। तो हैविंग पीस ऑफ माइंड इन द वर्किंग प्लेस, so that's where we have to focus ourselves on Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda is our guiding motto. उनको सामने रखिए, so all the expert knowledge, use it for the welfare of humanity. I have finished my third responsibility also. Our Secretary Maharaj, who was supposed to come, he got busy with some other function. Then he sent his representatives. Our Assistant Secretary Swamiji, Manager Maharaj, they all came. And we are very happy and grateful to all the Swamis who came and graced the occasion out of their busy schedule. And thanks to our monks for that wonderful chanting, which has elevated our mind to a higher level. Now, not taking much time, I will give the podium to our expertise of the day today. So I hand over the mic to Ratanji for the further announcement. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you here at Ramakrishna Mission Mumbai for this wonderful session on management of tuberculosis in detail. I'll come again in the end to announce few things. So enjoy the session. Be alert. है ना? जब भूख लगता है तो खाना बहुत अच्छा लगता है पेट में, उसी तरह मन में भूख। So hunger for knowledge. This much I can tell you. Let us develop that hunger for knowledge. क्योंकि श्री रामकृष्ण आके बोले हैं जो तो बाची तो सीखी। As long as I live, I do learn. वही जीता है जो रोज जो सीखता है। जिस दिन आपने सीखने बंद कर दिया, you are dead. So we have seen people who learn new things at the age of 70, 80 and practiced it for up to 100, 120 years. हमारे सामने living examples हैं. So this one more request. Develop that hunger for knowledge, right knowledge, put it in practice for the service of humanity. With this message, and once again, I'm very delighted to have all the doctors with us today. A warm welcome to all of you and special welcome to all our dignitaries who are here with us. So, our doctor has come, no? He came? He got his this thing, okay? So, with this, I stop here. Thank you, Vananda. Namaskar.
Namaskar, and thank you so much, Swamiji, for that concise, crisp welcome note, keynote address. I'd like to share with you at this stage that we are very proud and very happy to say that we have been dealing with TB patients from Ramakrishna Mission, Mumbai, as well as we have a rural health and welfare center in Palghar district, village called Sakwar. For more than 50 years, that village center has been operating. And a couple of years back, we were honored and awarded a prize from Pradhan Mantri TB Mukt Yojana for our services, successful services rendered in eliminating TB in Palghar district. Taking this further, we have our next speaker to speak on the occasion of this special CME, Dr. Rachna Vishwajit. I'll give you a small introduction about Dr. Rachna. She is a seasoned public health specialist with over 15 years of experience in leading large-scale health programs across India. She currently serves as a medical consultant with WHO under the National Tuberculosis Elimination Program, where she supports strategic planning, digital innovations, and multi-sectoral coordination across Maharashtra. She has been a part of joint supportive supervision for various states. She holds a Master's in Public Health from PISS, a Diploma in Public Health with a gold medal, and an MBBS from Lokmanya Tilak Medical College. She has presented at the World Lung Conference in Paris, Bali, at the India Innovation Summit for TB, and is a winner of NAPCON for her presentation. May I invite Dr. Rachna Vishwajit.
Thank you so much, sir, for the very elaborate introduction. But I'm just a doctor, just like everyone sitting here. And so today I will be presenting about the epidemiology of tuberculosis, specifically in India and Mumbai. I see that everyone, let me just put it on slideshow. So we all are very seasoned doctors here, but do we actually understand that how many patients per lakh do we see or do we have in India or throughout the world? So let us just have it a little bit interactive, not too much. But then what do you think that how many patients per lakh do we have in the world? Around per lakh, कितने patients होंगे? Guesses. 100, somewhere I heard 100. Okay, we are not very close from that. We have around 130 patients per lakh internationally, globally, okay? And maximum patients हमारे कहाँ से होंगे? What do you think? The global north or global south? The global south, of course. And then जब global south की बात आती है, तो then Southeast Asia and Africa are the two continents where we have maximum of tuberculosis patients. Now, what do you think? How many patients we must be having in India per lakh? Will it be more than 130 or less than that? More than that. So just a guesswork. What would it be?
300.
Okay. Little 300 is towards the higher side, but we have around 200 patients per lakh in India. And when we speak about Maharashtra, so Maharashtra is not like it is almost representing what the numbers we have for India. we have in Maharashtra to 200 patients per lakh in Maharashtra as well. Before we move to Mumbai, that what the numbers would be, this is just a glimpse of what is the contribution of India in the world. Now, if we say that we have incidence cases of 133 per lakh in globally, and India is almost 200, but when we actually look at the absolute numbers, India is contributing to 26% of the global load, which is not a very small number. Like almost 1/4 of TB cases, they come from India. And when it comes to mortality, it comes to almost 30% of deaths we see in tuberculosis are in India. And this is of course MDR TB. Now that we have through Gene Expert and through the expert diagnosis techniques what we have, we are able to diagnose a lot of tuberculosis patients, and we are almost contributing to more than 20%, 25% of MDR cases as well. Now, what do you think? Like this number of 27%, is it correct estimate? What do you think? Or even this 26%, 29%, is it a correct estimate, or you think there might be some hidden numbers in these?
Hidden numbers.
There may be, right? Because what we see over here is the incidence and the mortality and also the MDR numbers which are being notified to the government. But there might be some patients whom we are missing out, whom we are not able to diagnose, or even if we diagnose, we are not notifying it to the government. So this is though a number which we have, but this gives a very kind of a crisp picture that what the scenario might be in India. Just thoda sa, maybe 1 or 2% we might be missing, and that number might not be represented here. So let us look at, this is just the infrastructure Maharashtra has. I wouldn't go much in detail, but if you look at the NTEP districts, the National TB Elimination Program ke districts divide kiye gaye hai. Throughout Maharashtra, we have 80 districts. Now, when we talk about the revenue districts in Maharashtra, I think we are somewhere around 52 or 54 when we talk about revenue districts. But still, when it comes to National TB Elimination Program, we have divided few of the revenue districts into 2 districts or more than those districts, so that the administration becomes easier. We get more health staff. So in Mumbai, we have 24 wards, A, B, C, ऐसे अलग-अलग wards है. So all these wards have been they have been converted into districts. So in Mumbai, we have 24 districts. I wouldn't go much into detail of all this, and this is just the laboratory infrastructure what we have. This is for Maharashtra totally, okay? Because I represent Maharashtra, so I will be talking more about Maharashtra. DMC, what do you think? What is a DMC? Designated Microscopy Centers. Okay, why do we require microscopy for tuberculosis? To diagnose a patient, right? So, if you see, before we had the advanced technology for diagnosing tuberculosis, microscopy, जो हमने हमारे बचपन से पढ़ा हुआ है, AFB staining was one of the best tests that we had for diagnosing a tuberculosis patient. So, we have an infrastructure of almost 2025 DMCs. And what is this NAT? Perfect. So nucleic acid amplification testing, it is a newer technology which has been launched say around 10 to 15 years back, and this is also commonly called as Gene Expert or CBNAT, or now we have indigenous technology which is called as TrueNAT as well. So this technology gives you the result of TB positivity within 2 hours. Microscopy is one test which will also give you the positivity within a short span of time, but it is very subjective because the lab technician actually has to see those 100 fields. And if imagine a lab technician is a little tired by looking at almost 50 slides every day, so there can be a human error. So this error can be bypassed if we are putting the samples directly on NAT testing. Okay. Now this is a PCR kind of technology where there are cartridges or chips where we put the sample in these cartridges. We get the result within 2 hours about whether the MTB bacilli is present or not, and plus along with it we also get the resistance pattern for rifampicin. Now, as you all know that rifampicin is the first choice of drug whenever, it's a primary drug when it comes to tuberculosis treatment. So, dual benefit. One, we come to know whether it is MTB positive or not, and secondly, whether the sample is rifampicin resistant or rifampicin sensitive. In Mumbai, what we have done is we almost have 42 or 44 NAT machines, and our aim always is that whenever a presumptive patient sample is received, like any symptomatic patient का अगर sample हमको मिलता है, we directly put it on NAT. The patient samples is it doesn't undergo a microscopy at all. So this is called as upfront testing for resistance. Okay, this is called upfront testing. So even in your practice, whenever you want to send a sample to a government setup, whenever you send the sample, that would be upfront put to NAT, and a microscopy wouldn't be conducted. So within 2 hours, you actually get the result of MTB and as well as resistance. Then we have something called as CDST. CDST is culture and DST drug sensitivity testing. Throughout Maharashtra, we have 13 labs, and throughout Mumbai, we almost have, counting the private as well as the public, we almost have 6 laboratories. Now, what further this CDST adds to our already existing techniques is, now we have come to know about rifampicin. Rifampicin ka resistance and sensitivity हमको पता चल गया. But what about the other drugs which we already have, right? We have isoniazid, we have fluoroquinolones now that we are using. Now we have newer drugs like midaquilin and delaminate, ritonamide. These are the newer drugs that we have. So if we have those drugs, so definitely we have to do the culture and sensitivity of these drugs as well. And for that, reflexly, so whenever a sample comes from you guys, if you send it to a public laboratory and we put a sample on NAT, there will be 2 samples collected. The second sample will be reflexly sent to a culture DST lab, where we will be doing a DST testing of all the drugs which are available. Now, of course, there is an algorithm. I think in the next lectures we will be going through that. So, so depending on the algorithm, the DST is conducted for all the samples that we have received. And then, of course, there are intermediate reference laboratories. Now, these are the laboratories which keeps a tab on all the CDST labs, whether they are working properly or not. And they also, of course, cater to the samples which they received for culture and DST. Now, this is just a network of the DRTB centers that we have. Okay, the green ones are the district DRTB centers, and the orange ones are the nodal DRTB centers. This big part where you see on your west side, on the west side of Maharashtra, is Mumbai and Peri-Mumbai. Now, can someone just critically analyze this map? One thing, one critique, what you would say? Okay, I would tell you. Okay? Anything?
Majority of centers are.
Yes. So majority of the centers, if you see, are concentrated towards the west part of Maharashtra. Also, here, because the lab is, because the map is so small and we have represented it with pin drops, but you can imagine that suppose a Yavatmal patient has to travel from a district DRTB. If they have to travel to a nodal DRTB center, they either have to go to Nagpur or to Latur or to Akola. On the map, it must not be it wouldn't look like a long distance. But imagine a person who's traveling in a bus or whatever transport they have, they take more than a day just to travel to a higher center. So what the government is trying to do is to establish these centers in all the districts so that the patient doesn't have to travel for long hours to receive the services. Now that we have technology, so we obviously we have telecalling, we have phone, we have ways of communicating with the higher centers. But sometimes clinically we do have to establish some kind of diagnosis or treatment. So where the patient has to travel, and trust me, it's a tedious task for them to travel all the way. So our objective is whoever is planning to move towards eastern part of Maharashtra, or you must be having colleagues who are working in the eastern part of Maharashtra, please see to it that they are kind of treating tuberculosis patient, and if they want to upgrade themselves as a nodal DRTB center or district DRTB center, they are more than welcome. And this is just a laboratory, just a geological representation of the laboratory networks that we have. I told you that we have 13 laboratories, right? Now, this becomes critically very easy for us to analyze that here we clearly see that all the laboratories are situated on the western part of Maharashtra. These laboratories, as I told you, are culture DST laboratories. Now imagine अगर एक patient गढ़चिरौली में है या for that matter लातूर में है and उस patient का sample has come rifampicin resistant. Now this patient का sample has to go to a culture DST laboratory. What do you think the nearest culture DST laboratory will be for them? Which is Aurangabad. Or the sample has to come to Pune or some part of Mumbai or maybe to Nagpur. How many days it must be taking for this sample to reach a specific place? A laboratory. It takes a lot of time, it takes almost 2 days for the sample to reach. Once the sample is reached, we have to manage all the cold chain. Once the sample is reached, we have to see whether there is any breach or something, and then we have to put the sample for culture, DST. Many a times because the sample has to travel so long, and in summer days we cannot do the testing, and many a times this rather than a culture growth, we do not see any growth, and then we have no result at all, and then we are blindly treating our patients. So this is a challenge which we all face. Maharashtra, I would tell you, it is still in a better position than other parts of the country, because at least we have laboratories which are concentrated to the west, and we have a mechanism so that all these samples, though we have less laboratories, but all these samples are travelled in a specific time to these to the laboratories which are the nearest to them. So a mechanism is already in place. However, you can understand that the challenge always remains, and we would welcome if there are more laboratories situated across Maharashtra. Now let us look at the numbers we have. Okay, this is 2024 figure we have. I'm sorry, we do not have the headline for this, but these are the 2024 figures. Okay. Maharashtra had almost 2,25,000 cases of tuberculosis which we notified in 2024. Out of them, rifampicin sensitive were 80,000, 81,000. Let's take it as 80,000. And rifampicin resistance are 9,000. Now all the samples, 2,25,000 samples, either they are divided as rifampicin resistance or rifampicin sensitive, correct? Am I right to say that? Right. So, मेरा rifampicin sensitive and rifampicin resistant का जो total है should be the total cases. But are they the total cases? No. Almost 1,25,000 cases का यहाँ पे result हमारे पास available नहीं है. What does this mean? That 1,25,000 cases को हम लोगों ने what we have done, we have not done NAT for this patient, right? जो NAT test हम gene expert हम नहीं कर पाए, and we do not know the rifampicin resistance or sensitivity pattern. And what are we doing? Unfortunately, what kind of treatment is the patient getting because of this? It's blind treatment. It's blind treatment. Because we don't know the resistant pattern of these patients, we are blindly treating the patient. Many a times we are giving them drug-sensitive treatment because that is the first choice of regimen which we will give to the patients. And these are being blindly tested. Now, what do you think? How many rifampicin-resistant cases we must be missing? Because we are not doing upfront NAT. Double. Somewhere more than double we are missing. So, हमारे almost 10,000 patients हैं Maharashtra में, and of course we have the figures for Mumbai also, corporations and rural also, and proportionately we are missing on so many of these cases already, right? So we have to have a very vigilant eye whenever a patient comes to us. First thing is we have to see if the patient is presumptive TB, and then directly we have to send the sample for upfront NAT. And one more thing, one challenge which we have is, it is easy for me to get a sample, to say that you have to get a sample. At least for a pulmonary patient, it is relatively quite easy because it's just a sputum sample. But imagine if a person has lymph node or an abdominal TB or some kind of pot spine or CNS TB. Do you think it will be very easy to get the samples? It's not easy to get the samples. So there we understand that we are not getting the sample and probably we would not get the resistant pattern of the patients. But even the numbers which I am showing you, usme that doesn't mean कि pulmonary का सबका upfront NAT हुआ है. In this, the 10,000, the number which we are missing, it has a substantial number of patients who are also sputum, like pulmonary patients. This the sample we are missing out, and we are blindly treating these patients. So please, this is a request to all that we have to see to it that all the samples go for NAT testing. Now, these are just the definitions of MDR, pre-XDR. I will just very quickly go with the definitions. MDR is a person who has rifampicin resistance. Rifampicin and or INH resistance agar usko ho, so that person is called as MDR patient. Pre-XDR is a patient who is MDR plus they have fluoroquinolone resistance. Because fluoroquinolone is one of the drugs which is a second line drug, very commonly given to a second line DRTB patient. Then we have XDR, and XDR are the patients who are already pre-XDR plus they have bedaquiline or linezolid and or pretonamide and linezolid resistance. Sorry, why am I talking about pretonamide? Bedaquiline and linezolid resistance and or linezolid. So bedaquiline is one of the newer drugs which has been launched for second line treatment of tuberculosis somewhere in 2017. Then we had delaminid come our way, which was initially used for pediatric, but now we have it even for adults. And then we have another drug which is called as pretonamide. Now these drugs are not available in the market. These drugs are exclusively available only in the NTEP system. So anytime if you find a patient who is a DRTB patient and you want to initiate the patient on DRTB regimen which contains bedaquiline or pretonamide or delaminid, and nowadays we promote utilization of these drugs, so you can very well send these patients to the government system so that they get the benefit of this treatment. Then an H mono case. Okay, H mono case is what? A person who has resistance to isoniazid, because isoniazid is also a primary drug which is given, and if a person is isoniazid, we can no longer give the classic HREZ treatment, then we have to give some other regimen. So of course, in the next lectures we'll have those regimens in detail. Okay. Then we have just the trend of DRTB case finding efforts from 2021 to 2024. What do you think? Are the cases rising, not rising, decreasing? We do see a dip, right? We do see a dip. Not very substantial, but there is a very slight dip that we can see. And this is because all the efforts we have been putting. And mind it, this is something, if you remember during COVID, like, initially hum logon ne bola ki cases बढ़ रहे हैं, and then suddenly the cases came down, and we were all very happy. And then suddenly we realized that we are not testing a lot of patients, and because of that, the number of COVID patients came down. Then the indicator which we started to look at is the number of tests we have conducted and the number of patients we have been diagnosed. So here, in fact, if you look at 2024, the number of testings which we have done have also increased. Earlier, it was somewhere around 800 tests per lakh, but now we are almost reaching past 2,500 tests per lakh, and through that, we are able to diagnose these many patients, and you see that the trend is still going down. There are 3 bars over here. Now you will ask me, what are these 3 colors? So the dark blue is the diagnosed TB patient. The orange is current, and the green one is who are put on treatment. Okay. Now what do you understand by diagnosed cases? Now this is common. What will be diagnosed cases? How many we diagnosed? How many we diagnosed in Maharashtra is represented here, almost 11,900. What about this orange bar? It is current cases. What do you understand with current cases?
Those who are on treatment.
Yes. So those who are on treatment in Maharashtra. Okay, so what happens is Maharashtra and specifically Mumbai, it is a hub of all the health infrastructure what we have here. It's very strong. So many times patients, they travel from outside states also, and peri Mumbai also. They travel all the way to Mumbai, or bahar ke jo states ke hai, they come to Maharashtra, some part of Maharashtra, and they get diagnosed. And that's why Maharashtra is diagnosing more number of patients here, which is almost 11,000, almost 12,000. But when it comes to putting them on treatment, what we do is, what the protocol is, once we diagnose, the patients go to their respective district or to their respective states, and they start their treatment from that state. So that's why Maharashtra is, if you see the number of current cases, that is less than our diagnosed cases. And then there is a green bar which is put on treatment. What do you think? Is it a good sign or a bad sign? Current cases, the put on treatment, is it good or bad? That 91% represents put on treatment out of the current cases. अगर हमारे पास patients, current patients जो treatment लेना चाहते हैं, if they are 11,400, that means that all these patients should have been on treatment. But what is happening? We are just putting on treatment around 10,400. So, we are missing on 1,000 patients of DRTB who were supposed to be initiated on treatment, but Maharashtra could not initiate them on treatment. And what do you think the reasons might be for this? Initial loss to follow-up, death before initiation of treatment. Now, why this happens? Is many times because the diagnosis is delayed. Patient refuses, patient is in denial, patient has addictions, patient has comorbidities, and we are not able to address the entire, as Maharaji said before me, that we are not able to address the entire syndrome and the social problems which the patient is going through, and that is the reason that we are not able to put 100% on treatment. But think, whenever we have a patient who are in our system, please see to it that all of them are initiated on treatment. Now, this is the DRTB successful outcome. So whenever a patient comes to us, we put them on a specific regimen depending on the resistance pattern they show. And if you see, I wouldn't go into detail into all these colorful lines, okay? But just see the purple line which is on top, which is 100% and 97%. Do you see what regimen that is? Here it is written here, BPAL M. Okay, now BPAL M is a new regimen which the government of India has launched, and it just has 4 drugs. Okay, bedaquiline, which is a new drug, pretonamide, which is a new drug, linezolid, which had been in the system for some time, and moxifloxacin. Okay, and we had the trials in Mumbai itself at 2 centers in Govandi and Sarvodaya Hospital, you all must be aware of. So we had the trial, and the number of patients who were put on treatment, 100% patients showed successful outcome. So, is this a welcome regimen for all of us then? It is, right? For drug-resistant TB patients, basically for rifampicin-resistant TB patients. So, of course, sir will, I think Parag sir will be talking more about what this BPAL-M regimen is. And there are some other regimens also which we use very commonly, are the longer and the shorter regimen. Older regimens have become obsolete, and then we also have the H-mono regimen for H-resistant TB patients. But now the protocol, the latest guidelines of 2024 November for DRTB, we are promoting BPAL-M to all the resistant TB patients, provided of course there is an inclusion and exclusion criteria, because this is given exclusively to people who are more than 14 years of age. Okay. Then very quickly, I think this is 2017-25. I wouldn't go into much into detail, but the top I would want to talk about is the private sector engagement. NTEP is one program which is not working in silos only in the public system. We have a lot of our patients, and we have given access to a lot of private doctors also to all our NTEP drugs, including the DRTB drugs. If you must all be aware, like Hinduja Hospital, say you must be getting a lot of TB patients a result. Hinduja Hospital is one of the centers jahan pe we have a nodal DRTB center. and the services are given free of cost to the patient. But and government of like the local government, BMC, will pay the hospital. So similarly, if there is any hospital or any doctor who's ready to work in such kind of setup in partnership with the government, we will welcome them as well. Then I wouldn't. These are the services what we have. There is also one thing which I would like to talk about is the PPSA. Has anyone been contacted with some person associated with BMC to talk about the notification of TB patients? A private organization or some NGO? Okay, maybe very soon they will come in contact with you. So PPSA is a patient provider support agency, where what the government has done is, the government doesn't have enough staff to cater all the requirements of the private sector. So they have hired a PPSA agency, which is some kind of NGO. What they do is, they are an interface agency between the public and private. So whenever you have a TB patient and if you want to notify, and probably you wouldn't have all the infrastructure to notify a TB patient, then this agency comes in between and help you to notify these patients. Okay, so this is a PPSA agency. Then we have free X-ray services to the, this is for Mumbai, free X-ray services to all the patients. Then we have Center of Excellences. When I spoke to you about district DRTB centers, nodal DRTB centers, uske bhi upar we have the Center of Excellence, where we have it at Wadia and at JJ Hospital. We have now, when I spoke to you about that the sputum sample is very easy to retrieve, but then what about the extrapulmonary samples? So for that, the government has a scheme where we have tied up with private hospitals specifically for FNAC, for CT guided biopsy, for some MRIs, because depending on the site of where tuberculosis is, we will have to get those specific tests. Okay, so for that we have empaneled hospitals. There is a whole genome sequencing study which is going on, and then there are 3 pulmonary rehabilitation centers. Of course, Yatin Dholakia sir is a pioneer into helping us with establishing these centers, and we are trying to establish it throughout Maharashtra as well. I wouldn't go into all these, but yeah, this is one thing, because you all are private practitioners. I would want you all to see this. Let us look at from the right from the beginning, that if you find any patient who is presumptive TB, then what are the services the patient would be getting? The patient would be getting a free CBNAT or a free TrueNAT. Basically, a free test would be given to the patient. Only thing is, you have to notify the patient details to us, and the sample will be collected either from your center, or the patient can get it to our center, and then a free test will be given. We would help you to notify the patient if the patient has come positive. So either the PPSA agency or the DTO office will help you to notify the patient. The patient would get free treatment or FDCs. Now, FDCs is fixed dose combination, as we all know. So this is given free of cost to the treatment, to the patient. Okay, so treatment is free of cost if the patient is a DRTB, unfortunately. So what will happen is, this a patient would shift to the public sector DRTB center, and there he will get free access to all the DRTB drugs. Then there will be linkages of, so suppose if the patient remains with you, the patient doesn't want to come to the public sector, but then there are a lot of other tests which are required, lot of other public health actions. Like the patient is eligible for 1,000 rupees per month until the patient is on treatment. Okay, so if the patient is on treatment at private sector, who will pay that money? So still the PPSA agency and the DTO office will come forward and help to enroll the patient in the system, and the patient still gets the benefit of that 1,000 rupees. Plus we have comorbidity testing, plus we have HIV testing, we have differentiated TB tests. So for all these public health actions, of course the PPSA agency would come in picture. Then of course we have a lot of treatment adherence support, a lot of follow-ups which we do for all our TB patient, even if they are notified in the government, and even if they are taking treatment from the private sector. Okay, and yeah, this is again the same thing. So what we have done is, there is a concept called as hub and spoke model. I think our hospital is a hub. Our hospital is a hub, and there are some other private clinics who are the spokes. So anytime if they have TB patient and they want some kind of expert advice, then these patients are referred to our hospital, and our hospital will do all the other jo bhi the diagnostic algorithm which sir will be talking about, the diagnostic and treatment algorithm will be taken care once the patient come in the system, in the hub. Okay, and yeah, so this is just a picture. If anyone has not seen what is a CBNAT machine look like, this is a CBNAT machine. This is a midget machine which is there. It's like kind of a big box. These are the FDC drugs which are available, the green strip which you see, and this is the bedaquiline drug medicine which is available. It comes in a bottle. Now, of course, it comes in a strip as well. And yeah, so these are all the partnerships which we have. So we also have partnerships with chest physicians to manage our DRTB patient and also our patient who are difficult to treat. Okay, so we have partnership. So this is called a specialist consultation. What we do is we will send the patient to a specialist, and we have a specific OPD for that, and the specialist will come. The patient will not be charged, and he still get the services from the specialist. Then we have schemes with private DRTB centers as well. In Mumbai, we have 7 centers. One is Hinduja, what I talked about. We have Kokila, Ben. We have some other centers also. Then partnership scheme for beds for TB patient. Many a time, some difficult to treat patients, we are not able, we have to manage them in an IPD. Now, this partnership has been made with Vadia Pediatric Hospital, because many a time for pediatric patients, we do require an IPD bed. Then we have a cartridge sharing model where what happens is private hospital might be having a CBNAT machine. NTEP has abundance of cartridges. So NTEP would provide all the cartridges to the private setup, and the hospital is told not to charge the patient. Okay, so it's a win-win for everyone. And then, of course, we have outsourcing for pre-treatment investigations also. So once a patient is diagnosed, specifically for a DRTB patient, we have to do a panel of a lot of tests, because हम लोग just ऐसे ही उसको treatment पे नहीं डाल सकते, because the patient might be having some kind of comorbidity or some kind of medical issues which might aggravate if some kind of DRTB drugs are given. So that's why we have to do these panel of tests, which is called as pre-treatment evaluation, and that is also given free of cost to the patient. And for that also we have a lot of partnerships. Okay, so this is all I wanted to talk about, and this is where I stop my lecture. I think I've taken just 3 minutes extra. So thank you so much. If there are any doubts, I can take it now, or maybe in the next subsequent lectures there will be a lot of things which you can which will be clarified. Yes, sir.
First of all, let me compliment you for an excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir.
There are a lot of questions, but I'll put 3 questions. Question number 1, do you have statistics of having pulmonary with associated comorbidities like diabetes and maybe other problems like cancer or any other thing? That's number 1. Number 2, this is an ambitious project of the Honorable Prime Minister. The deadline gave us 25. Do you think by what, according to you as an expert, when do you think we'll be able to completely eradicate? And number 3, first time I'm hearing you talking about abdominal. I've been attending all the seminars. I attended at G North. About 2 months back, I attended at K East also. And I raised a question of, being a gynecologist, there are a lot of patients, they go for IVF. Abdominal cases with a bilateral fallopian block. Do you have a statistic? And till today, I don't think anybody has been able to give me statistic. Just this for information. I want this answer to these 3 questions.
Thank you so much for these questions, sir. I think it will help clarify doubts of many people over here. So one thing about the first question which you had is tuberculosis, specifically pulmonary tuberculosis with comorbidities. Do we have the statistics? So yes, sir, we do have statistics of all the comorbidities we have. We do not, I wouldn't say the cancer statistics are that strong which we have, because we are still in the process of collecting that data, and which has been very recently started. But for diabetes, for HIV, we definitely have. And this is available in the India TB report, which comes out every year, and also in the global TB report, which is given by World Health Organization. So also one more thing is I would want to talk about Nikshay portal, a Nikshay software, not software, but it's a portal basically, which all the doctors can access. You wouldn't be getting the statistics, but you would definitely be able to enroll your patient on that. And the statistics can be analyzed from the district TB office. So anytime if you have a doubt of the statistics, you can always come in contact with the district TB office. The second question you had about the vision of the Prime Minister for 2025 was to eliminate TB. We are not talking about eradication here, sir, because it is something which is one step ahead of elimination. 2025 we were not able to achieve, sir, because even when we were, I was sitting in the front row when Swamiji was talking about it was NTB 2025, but now it has been extended to 2030. It was under exceptional conditions, the vision was for 2025, but because unfortunately we had COVID and a lot of research projects which we had about vaccination, about newer drugs, they were all stopped because of COVID, and then we had to extend the deadline to 2030. The third question, sir, I'm sorry, I'm not able to recollect properly.
That was question
about abdominal tuberculosis, yes.
Patient going for IVF and none of them had any statistics.
Okay.
Maybe having, because of infection, there are bilateral blockage of the
Yes.
fallopian tube.
Yes.
And therefore there may be many other indications.
Yes.
But this could be because of tuberculosis.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to know.
Yes, sir. So abdominal tuberculosis I so clearly talked about is because we are seeing a lot of abdominal cases now, specifically under the gynecology department. Like whenever I take CME, I always try to see if there are any gynecologists, because what happens is whenever a female comes for her with a problem of infertility, many a times empirically we start the patient on AKT, and I think that is the protocol which most of the gynecologists they follow, and which is not wrong. I would say that is what the protocol demands, and with that the patient many a times she does get pregnant, and even before IVF also I think a doctor always prescribes AKT to them. Abdominal tuberculosis is very difficult to diagnose because getting a biopsy it's very difficult. So just starting an empirical AKT makes more sense to them. But what we can do is we can still notify the patient as tuberculosis. No one is going to ask you any question that why have you initiated the patient on AKT क्योंकि आपके पास sample नहीं है. No one is going to ask. It is your expertise that you start. We do have a number of patients who are extrapulmonary, who are abdominal coughs. We are capturing that data also. But until now, sir, we are not capturing the data of whether the indication of initiating treatment, like was it infertility or not. Of course, on the case paper we have all the detail, but at least in the Nikshay portal what we are still not capturing. But I'm sure that very soon we will have a very detailed kind of input in Nikshay. But sir, you can understand, like the more questions we ask and more inputs we tell the doctor to put on the portal, it becomes very tedious for everyone. So we have taken just the indicators which are very important, but I do understand your point, sir. We will very soon try to find, or we can find some research work for you to give the statistics on that.
2 months back, there was a CTO from Shindewadi, I forget his name, and he also said he is not very sure about the statistics. That's why I raised it.
Yes, because we do not capture that as a problem. Anything else, or should we?
Excellent presentation.
Thank you so much. Nice.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Rachna Vishwajit, for that informative and encouraging talk of yours. Encouraging because you have shared with us about the many facilities that you have planned and coming up with. Thank you so much. Our next speaker, sorry. Okay, please, sir. Okay, Dr. Rachna has to leave. So, small memento to Dr. Rachna. Just a minute. Okay, this one. This one. Our next speaker to tell us about lab diagnostics in TB, Dr. Parag Mehta. Before inviting him on the dais, I'll just read a bit of his CV. Dr. Parag Mehta, DNB Respiratory Medicine, Diploma in TB and Chest Diseases, Fellowship Training in Sleep Medicine, American Academy of Sleep Medicine, Pennsylvania, USA. Fellowship Training in Critical Care Medicine, Indo-Australian Critical Care Training Program at Jaslow Hospital, Mumbai. ERS Fellowship in Interventional Pulmonology, Thorax Link, Heidelberg, Germany. Consultant, Pulmonary Sleep and Critical Care at Bharatiya Arogyamiti Hospital, Juhu, PACS MG Hospital, Andheri West, Criticare Hospitals, Andheri, MCGM Specialist in PMDT, in charge of K East Ward, Andheri, Mumbai. And he has his clinic also at Andheri, Mumbai. May I invite Dr. Parag?
Good afternoon, everybody. Namaskar to all of you. And at the outset, let me acknowledge with a lot of gratitude the entire management of the RK Mission Hospital who have been engaging in this great service to humanity since so many decades and carrying on the baton from their gurus. I would also like to thank Dr. Dolakia sir for inviting me for this talk today and all of you for coming in and listening to my little talk. I will try to shed some light on the latest update and the present status of diagnostics in the laboratory for tuberculosis. TB as a diagnostic dilemma or query has always been puzzling a lot of clinicians, and it can pose such difficult questions to even the best of clinicians that it can test patients. So let us start the talk. So this is what Swamiji was also mentioning, that Vivekananda Maharaj had actually given to all of his disciples. It's a privilege to serve mankind, for this is the main worship of God. God is here in all of these human souls, and this is across the entire spectrum of humanity. So we don't have any biases. What are the reference documents in the textbooks from which I take my knowledge and I share it with you today are here for you. So anybody who wants to have a second opinion or wants to have delve more into the details, you can go back to the WHO guidelines, or you can go back to the NTEP module guidelines also for the same. Tuberculosis, how is it defined? Already Madam has taken a very good lecture, enlightening talk on how we go about managing TB patients. bacteriologically confirmed TB is the essence of diagnosis. Robert Cox, in his stunning delivery in his oration in 1883, laid down those Cox postulates as the benchmark to kind of identify an infectious organism and link it to a particular disease. Those still stand the test of time for most organisms, exceptionally a few viruses and prions. Otherwise, most of the illnesses, bacterial, viral, parasitic, still tend to kind of be tested on the Cox postulates. And so, what is bacteriologically confirmed TB? TB, where you have actual documentation of the bacteria in the tissue or in the secretions of that tissue by smear microscopy or culture, or even by now the nucleic acid amplification tests, which are now taking over a big time from the smear microscopy. We will come to that. So the gene expert of the TrueNAT are to be recognized and accepted as the diagnostic tool. And bacteriologically confirmed TB, primarily AFB smear positive is something which may be TB, may not be TB. But a TrueNAT or a CBNAT positive is TB, and that's bacteriologically confirmation. Presumptive TB is where you are not able to access any of these tissues or any of the samples from the patient, and yet you want to err onto the side of a clinical diagnosis of tuberculosis, and where the index of suspicion is quite high from the clinician side, and yet the getting the answer in terms of actual abstract microbiologic evidence is difficult. Presumptive TB is now reducing in size with the availability of these faster techniques, and rightly so, as we shall see. So the entire 20th century, after say somewhere in the late 1880s, 1885, 1890s, when Z staining were brought in, and early 20th century when that was modified by Zeal-Lancel, and you came up with the modified Zeal-Lancel stain. From there onwards, that has been the benchmark for diagnosis for TB, in kind of collaboration or partnership with some form of a radiologic imaging, generally X-rays in the first half. Later on, you started having CT scans and MRIs and PET scans also. And the gold standard for diagnosis, even then and even today, is culture. Culture in those days used to be done on the armadillos initially, and then that was live tissue organisms, and then it was done on the LJ medium or Lowenstein-Jensen medium. Now we have come far away from that. Now this is just a statement from Woodrow Wilson. This was how the political leadership used to think about tuberculosis in those days, in the early 20th century and late 19th century. The cure for bad politics is the same as the cure for tuberculosis. It is living in the open. That is where the concept of sanatoria came in. And let me tell you that America has not won over tuberculosis easily. They upgraded their infrastructure and made almost 1 lakh sanatoria bed available in a short period of around 15 years. That is how they invested in their healthcare, and they are reaping the benefits of that even today. So our country is also kind of following in the same similar footsteps, with the Honorable Prime Minister taking the baton. Some of the challenges towards the end of the century came up, and we were facing with a burgeoning high population of increasing TB burden, both in terms of morbidity and mortality. And so everybody, especially in the global south, as mentioned, Madam was mentioning, we needed a quick, sensitive and specific test which should be easy to use and should be kind of a point of contact assay. So right at the point where a patient comes in, the next door he has to go, nothing more than that. You don't need to send them far away for testing. That is the type of service that we need. And we also need to address the issue of drug resistance which was coming up. These tests needed to be simple, feasible, and of course, they should be in a term of scalability. They should be simple, so that if you want to take it up at a public health level and you want to expand it across huge geographic variations and huge socio-economic variations also, it should be feasible to do that. It should be easily integrable with healthcare systems. And how did humanity rise up to it? That is very nice. So the next slide is about it. So the diagnostics which have developed in the first 2 decades of 21st century are really kind of, supporting the concept of, conviction in humanity. That we came up with 2007, you came up with an automated liquid culture system. By 2008, you had a first line LPA or a line probe assay coming in, which was updated again in 2016 though. By 2008, we had drug sensitivity testing available for almost all first line drugs and some second line drugs. They were not very well standardized though. The standardization came in a bit later. By 2010, as ma'am was mentioning, Gene Expert came on the card. It was the game changer. It was like our, the hard hitter game changer, Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli, you can call that. That was the watershed kind of investigation, and it has brought in or ushered in a new era of genotypic testing that has changed the kind of face of public health programs and TB control today globally. Subsequent to that, we have also had developments in the IGRAs, or the screening for latent TB infections, and for second line probe assays. So all in all, by 2021, that's almost the end of the second decade, the WHO was ready with a very good guideline kind of a thing at a global level. And it came up with a lot of recommended tests. So on the upper part, what you're seeing are the nucleic acid amplification tests, and on the right what you are seeing are screening tests, and the bottom or the base part is the line probe assay. Those chromosomal patterns which you are seeing are basically actual genotypes of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. What are the tests recommended today by the National TB Elimination Program? I am talking about it primarily not because it is a part of the government program, but it is also very essential for us to share the knowledge that we have today with all of you out here. How many of you have had access to this in the past? I don't know. But it is very necessary, and even if you listen to the same thing again, I think it will be a brownie point for all of you. So what are the recommended tests? The first and most important tests are the nucleic acid amplification tests, or the NAT tests. That include Gene Expert and Indian locally kind of, it's a made in India thing. We'll come to that, through NAT. The next is the culture tests, the liquid culture, the NGIT of the BACT, which is available regularly in almost all good private labs, and phenotypic DST, which is actually the drug sensitivity testing done in the traditional way by inoculating the drug on the agar in the colonies of the Mycobacterium. And line probe assays are again a form of PCR tests which are used to assess resistance by picking up certain resistance areas on the genome of the Mycobacterium TB. And genomic sequencing has come in recently, which has some forms or some types, pyrosequencing, or you can have next generation sequencing. And finally is the whole genome sequencing, where what you are doing is you are actually unraveling or unwrapping the entire genomic constitution of a particular sample of a Mycobacterium TB which you have received, and it is there for you to kind of relate to and understand and kind of research on that. You can identify resistance, you can identify the genetic lineage to the ancestral kind of TB sources. So it's a huge sort of a thing. But coming to practical kind of government and day-to-day practice issues, let's start with genotypic testing. What are genotyping testing or genotypic tests? The nucleic acid amplification tests. These tests rely on the amplification of a targeted genetic region of the Mycobacterium TB complex. And so they are subjected to PCR. These samples which are containing the bacteria or are proposed or hypothesized to have come from the TB patient and could be carrying the TB bacteria, they are subjected to a polymerization technique, wherein what we do is we try to multiply the copies of the genome of the Mycobacterium. And using that, what you can do is you can identify Mycobacterium tuberculosis as a bacteria existing in that sample, and you can identify certain areas on that genomic sequence which could confer resistance to particular anti-TB medications. Primarily the first line medications which we have been using traditionally, the streptomycin, isoniazid, rifampicin, ethambutol and pyrazinamide. That's the first line. The second line drug also can be assessed in the same. Molecular methods, however, have an issue in the sense that they are very good in terms of one-time diagnosis. But when you are trying to use it for a monitoring sort of a thing, like what we do in AFB smear, when you get a patient in the RNTCP, it's a grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4 kind of a reporting which you receive when a patient is a sputum smear pulmonary TB positive patient. And that is a form of a gradation which you then subsequently observe or keep a surveillance on in order to identify a reduction in the bacterial load. Any such kind of a bacterial load estimate is very difficult to make when you are kind of using techniques like nucleic acid amplification, because even a few DNA fragments would be multiplied when you process the sample. So even if it is just a contaminant, or if you are having old kind of a dead bacilli, you really don't know. You are not treating an active disease then. So that is one of the limitations. What are the tests? Genotypic tests I was just mentioning. So you have the Gene Expert and the Gene Expert Ultra, the TrueNat and the TrueNat RIF diagnosis or RIF DX, whole genome sequencing, NGS, and as a corollary to all of these, you can use them to kind of identify drug resistance. This is how the expert MTB looks. The sample is first subjected to is centrifuged and then it is incubated for 15 minutes at room temperature with a reagent. It is then taken up in a micropipette and loaded into the cartridge, that blue color thing which you are seeing. Each cartridge is individualized. For one patient there is only one cartridge and it has a holding chamber where you put in the sample. And once it is loaded, just like you load a printer cartridge, similarly you load this CBNAT cartridge or the Gene Expert cartridge into the machine. You can have multi-modular multi-cartridge modules also. So at a point of time, you don't need to just test one. Now we will be testing multiple. So about 10 patient samples can be tested at the same time. What are the advantages? It is very, very sensitive and specific, quite good in diagnostic accuracy with a much reduced turnaround time. So about 90 minutes odd, you should get an answer generally. And technically, of course, it's a bit demanding, at least for the first few weeks to months for the lab. And if it's a level 3 or level 2 lab, then it might need some kind of extra training in order to kind of rise up to that level. There is a requirement for temperature control and power backup and all that for this, and that is one of the limitations. In addition to the fact that it is imported from Cepheid, which is a USA-based company. So through the government programs and through the WHO partnerships, we do get it at a concessional rate, and in the NTEP it is done completely free of cost. But we have now a very Indian kind of a made in India sort of a thing, which is the TrueNat. The TrueNat and the TrueNat MTB RIF DX were developed by Molbio Diagnostics, which is in Goa. That's a private company, but under the Make in India PLI scheme, they could come up with this innovative sort of a system. Now, compared to what the difference between the two is not much. What we are using in the Gene Expert is a cartridge. What we use in the TrueNat is a chip, which is loaded with the sample. Otherwise, most of the processing things are the same. And the cost is much less because it is locally made. It is easy to procure, faster to handle. The other advantages of the TrueNat are that it does not require specific environmental conditions to be maintained so rigorously. So no strict temperature control to be kind of maintained. So you can use it as a point of care in the periphery also if you want. Plus, it's much more simpler to kind of use. And of course, it will require some sort of infrastructure availability, but that can be easily made available as it is being rolled out in the NTEP, under the NTEP in the entire nation, and successfully so. So what are the problems with the TrueNat vis-a-vis the Gene Expert? So the TrueNat is relatively a bit less sensitive. You will see that data. So this is how the TrueNat looks. That's the machine which analyzes. That's the chip. You load that's the chamber in the chip which is loaded with the centrifuge sample, and then it is subjected to analysis, and you get an answer whether there is Mycobacterium TB detected or not within 1 hour. And by the next hour, it can also give you, if it has that module, the RIF diagnosis module, then it will tell you about resistance also. The next step is line probe assays. Line probe assays, as I was mentioning, use polymerase chain reaction and hybridization techniques. And they basically have been introduced first to identify mutations against isoniazid. So isoniazid has been in vogue probably after streptomycin. That was the first oral drug to come in, and it has been found to have been used and abused left, right and center. Has the highest level of resistance in community globally also and in India also. Yet it's not much, it's about 10 to 12%. And so it was a priority to identify INH resistance along with the RIFA resistance, and that is why LPAs came into picture. The first line LPA detects both rifampicin resistance using identification of the RPO beta gene and the CAT-G and the INH-A gene for the isoniazid resistance. The second line LPA, which was later on developed, helps in identifying resistance to fluoroquinolones and aminoglycosides. So aminoglycosides, starting from streptomycin and later on in the last 20-25 years, we had started using amikacin, kanamycin or capreomycin as and when provided the case need be, are now being relegated to a secondary position in the priority drug list for MDR tuberculosis. Dr. Dolakia sir will elaborate on that. But it is important to test for resistance to quinolones and SLIs because it demarcates two things. One is the presence of pre-XDR or XDR status, and the second is the availability of options in terms of therapeutic agents which we have been using for a long time, which we know are kind of well known to all of us. So this is a kind of a image of how the line probe assays work. And what are the key features? I have already mentioned. They identify target regions in the genome. And the important thing about line probe assays are that line probe assays tend to have a very, very good sensitivity and specificity to the tune of almost 97%. So at a point of time, they can kind of, be, if you don't have the possibility to use a culture, say for example, as ma'am was showing in the map, a lot of our eastern Maharashtra area is deprived of good lab support. You can install a couple of kind of such systems out there in those areas also. At least they will have first line, second line probe assays done. What are the turnaround times for line probe assay? The turnaround time is much higher compared to the nucleic acid amplification or NAT tests. So the NAT tests are ready in about an hour to 2 hours. At the most, it should take about 1 day to reach the requesting clinician or the patient. In today's times, it should be much faster, but well, we have to give up for some printing kind of timing and office timing. But the line probe assays take a slightly longer time because hybridization and PCR itself takes a longer time for that to process. But the efficacy in result is much better. Next, and the final gold standard is the culture. And I'm glad to say that, even the Lowenstein-Jensen culture is now used very sparingly. Most of our cultures are now done on MGIT or liquid-based media. And it is the gold standard for diagnosis. It was and it continues to remain the gold standard for diagnosis with a sensitivity of nearly 100% and a very high specificity, sensitivity of more than 96 and a specificity of 100%. Why is that gap of 4%? That is where your presumptive TB now falls. So if you don't have access or you just can't, for example, ocular tuberculosis, that's something which you can't sample. But if you were to ask me why we don't have data on urogenital tuberculosis or abdominal tuberculosis, let me accept regretfully that it is probably apathy on the part of us to kind of extrapolate that knowledge to our colleagues that these tests are available. And if you can give us a small sample also, we will be able to process it. So most of our colleagues, especially the surgical colleagues, have been doing some or the other form of sampling in order to get a histopathology. The only request now would be that instead of just taking sample and putting it directly into formalin, please keep half of that sample for a normal saline container and send it to the gene expert. And of course, further testing. So that will solve our problem and it will bring out a lot more of our hidden challenge in terms of tuberculosis. What are the advantages with culture? Obviously, it is a very good, it is the diagnostic test, but it also allows for further additional testing of any nature that you want to do, whether you want to do additional NAT or line probe assay, or even if you are into research of mycobacteria and their family and XYZ, you will have a lot of material. It will give you adequate sample. And of course, when you have a smaller sample size, as I was just mentioning, if it's an extrapulmonary tuberculosis, difficult to kind of have adequate tissue, at least a small size also, even 5 to 10 bacilli, today's culture techniques can grow that. So it is very good and very rewarding. And the money or the cost involved, if you send it to the government, is zero. If you send it through private sector, it will cost maybe 1,000 or maybe 1,500, 2,000 bucks, which obviously is going to be kind of a worthwhile investment to do at any point of time, even if you are facing a diagnostic challenge like TB or MDR. And of course, because of availability of the microbial colony in abundance, you can test for all the drugs. So we have almost 13 to 14 drugs which are now being used as second line drugs in tuberculosis treatment. And Dr. Dolakia sir will elaborate on that. But how will you use them if you don't know whether they are sensitive or not? It's always good to know, and we have the facility to know. It's now a part of us, our responsibility, and we should not be apathetic to that fact that it is available and we need to ask for it. What are the limitations for culture? It is, of course, it may require high standard of maintenance of laboratory personnel and their disinfection practices. So biosafety level lab should be at least 3 and above. Anything below that is not qualifiable to receive the machine itself. And of course, it still is a slightly slower technique compared to the line probe assay and the nucleic acid tests. We will come to the turnaround time also. There are some issues with difficulty in standardizing the drug MIC levels when we talk of susceptibility patterns, but that is beyond the purview of our discussion today. So what are the turnaround time for cultures? For solid culture, generally it takes about at least 2 weeks before it is reported. And quite often 3 to 4 weeks is the time when they come up. But they extend that if it's a slow growing organism or if the colony is taking its time, the lab generally keeps the solid culture for at least 8 weeks before declaring it negative. For a liquid culture though, this time is again shortened. So if you have a good representative sample or a specimen, you could get a positive result in as short a time as about 3 to 6 days. And quite often most of the reporting will be positive by about 3 weeks. So you get 4 reports. One is at the time when you submit the sample. The next would be at 10 days, then 3 weeks and 6 to 7 weeks. That is how the cultures are reported in a time frame. And that is equally applicable to the public sector as well as the private sector. So there's no reason to kind of keep waiting with twiddling our thumbs, what could be the result and all. We can start acting on whatever it may be. The next or the kind of most recent kid on the block is the genetic sequencing. NGS or next generation sequencing is a broad category of technologies and they allow for high throughput sequencing of DNA. Now these sound technically complex procedures and all, but let me put it in simple words. You take a sample. What we had been doing was a PCR, but we were doing PCR and then identifying only specific genomic areas or targets. Now what you are going to do is you are going to map out the entire DNA of the mycobacterium. It is like we have 23 set or pairs of chromosomes in all of us, right? So when we do a karyotyping and then you do a microarray on that, we have a genetic sequencing done for almost all the microbiome of all the genetic material that was taken in that sample. So there are several types to it and or kind of several techniques to it. What it does is it sequences DNA very fast and at a much lower cost than the traditional methods. The cost right now is high because the volume of tests which are being run is relatively less. But it is said that, with coming times and with increasing AI-driven sort of large language model-based sort of analysis, we have a much better kind of a turnaround time and we will have a much cheaper sort of availability of this technique. And what is whole genome sequencing? So it's a type of NGS and we can use it at several areas. So you can use it for genetic research, you can use it for disease diagnosis as we are trying to use it in tuberculosis. It can be used to develop personalized or targeted medicine as it is being used today in oncology, rheumatology, etc. And of course, it can also be extrapolated and used for forensics, anthropology. It also has a major public health implication because you can actually isolate specific strains which have been prevalent into particular geographic regions and causing more virulent or less virulent disease with specific traits which could be used to the advantage locally. So what are the advantages to genomic sequencing? It is extremely sensitive. And of course, as I mentioned, you can decode the entire genomic structure. The present limitations, because it is very sophisticated and costly right now, it is less available or it is not so easily available in the government sector. What are the initial tests for diagnosis? So coming to that, let us now look at the diagnostic efficiency or the sensitivity and specificity of the NAT tests that we have been talking about. Since all of you are men of science women of science, we are all scientific people, we will need evidence. What does the evidence say to us? That the expert MTB has a sensitivity of around 90% and a specificity of 96%. The TrueNAT has a sensitivity of 73% and specificity of 98%. This is when you are using the first generation assays. When you step it up and use the RIFA diagnosis or the RIFA DX systems, the sensitivity improves even further. So the Gene Expert Ultra has a sensitivity of 94%, whereas the TrueNAT has a sensitivity of 84%. Now, can anybody tell me what is the sensitivity and specificity of the ZN stain or the modified ZN stain? Anybody from the house? Because this is what we have been using for the last 50-60 years. Any rough idea? So it does not go above 65-70%. Even in the ideal setting. So if you are taking up a patient who has walked into either KEM or AIMS and given a very representative good sample, ideal sample, then also the sensitivity and specificity does not go beyond that. Whereas these reach up to 97-98%. So that itself speaks for the kind of improvement in the diagnostics that we have now. And when you look at the diagnostic efficiency for rifampicin resistance in these tests, the same thing happens. So the Gene Expert Ultra has a sensitivity of 94 with a specificity of around 99%. When you look at the TrueNAT, it has a slightly lower sensitivity. Anybody who works here in the public health, NTEP, anybody who is a part of the National TB program, I and Dr. Dolakia sir are also there, but so what is your experience with the TrueNAT in the field? You can tell us. So we have found that TrueNAT has a slightly lower sensitivity in a real-time field kind of a testing, and that is including our own experience in our center. So we do get discordant results because of that. Still, it is a good diagnostic test and should not be overlooked or stepped upon. So when you look at INH resistance and accuracy of first-line LPA, very high sensitivity and specificity for that as well. And when you look at second line LPA, the quinolone sensitivity and specificity is also moderate to high to the tune of around 86% of sensitivity and specificity of 99%. Now, how many diagnostic tests have this kind of a sensitivity right? So we are ushering in a new era of, very, very accurate form of diagnosis and have very little room to, or leave very little room for error. When you extend all this information and how do we go about treating that, Dr. Dolakia sir will be explaining it in much more detail, but in kind of a synopsis, the first step is you offer a universal testing to every patient with a nucleic acid amplification test, either the gene expert or a TrueNAT. The next step is a line probe assay, and one sample is also being given for a liquid culture if it is feasible. And the third step is obviously a tailored regimen. Now this in itself is basically what the WHO has it in mind in terms of, the standard for eradication for tuberculosis. Eradication because you will need to at least first control and treat the disease completely in those who have it now. So a very specific early diagnosis and a individualized tailored regimen for every patient as far as possible. Instead of, one stick for all, you will have a very specific patient specific kind of a therapy. What is the role of ZN stain or AFB smear today? So it, of course, as I was just mentioning, it has low sensitivity and specificity compared to the NAT tests, but it still remains important. It is cheap, it is easily reproducible, it is quick to do, and it has already been in a point of care kind of a place in RMTCP in its own respect. So there's no need to phase it out immediately. We are utilizing it even today. We use it for drug sensitivity TB surveillance and for looking for relapse in patients who are on treatment, whether it is drug resistant or drug sensitive TB. And of course, patients who have H mono kind of a resistance also, they can be kind of, monitored using the AFB smear. We do not use the AFB smear to diagnose tuberculosis today. That should be one of the take-home messages from the talk. I'll just elaborate on two things. Screening for latent or asymptomatic TB. There are two tests. One is the skin prick test, the standard 1-2 test. I am not going to talk much about it. There's a new test which has been launched, that is the PSI-TB, that is developed by the Serum Institute of India. What is the advantage? It is much more specific to the tune of it is matching or even bettering the specificity of the interferon gamma release assays. So it is very, very specific, and so it is now being used or being kind of launched in the part of the MTEP for household contact screening for all our patients who have been diagnosed and are under treatment. And IGRAs or interferon gamma release assays, the quantiferon TB Gold or the TB Gold Plus, that is IGRAs. They have certain limitations. Of course, they are costly. They need a serum sample, so a skin prick has to be done and a blood draw has to be done. Especially difficult when a patient is reluctant to do that. And of course, it needs sophisticated lab support, and it suffers from a relatively lower sensitivity and specificity compared to the PSI-TB today. So I hope I have kind of elaborated enough for all of you to kind of take home a little bit, and even 1 ounce of practice is worth 1,000 pounds of theory. And so these are some take-home messages that the NAT, LPA, genomic studies and liquid cultures are the first line now in terms of diagnostics of TB. And ZN smears and the cultures, especially the solid cultures, are used only for specific situations. By and large, not much kind of a thing to do in kind of a private practice setting. You will not really need to do it much unless you have a pulmonary TB whom you are monitoring. An uncommon situation or a very less frequent situation should arise in your practice. If you have been seeing and doing a lot of presumptive TB therapy where you're not doing these NAT tests and the cultures and all, please start doing them, because TB diagnosis, when it can't be confirmed, you have to understand you might be dealing with some other pathology. Today's times, medical fraternity is a very kind of a fragile reputation, and the entire society will be after you in case something untoward happens to the patient, even if it is a proven disease. So if it is an unambiguous diagnosis, no problem. But if there is ambiguity or dilemma regarding the diagnosis, the patient, the relative, the entire country can hound you out and make you feel depressed and disheartened that you have taken up a wrong profession, which is not correct. So we can always use these newer techniques and kind of protect ourselves. So latent TB screening is also important now, and it helps in improving outcomes, especially on a large population basis. So Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to say, as long as I live, so long do I learn. So I am also kind of overwhelmed to see octogenarians and seniors out here who are listening patiently to whatever I am speaking and ma'am had spoken about. And we are very grateful to you. Thank you very much.
How many centers are there in city of Bombay or in Maharashtra for this advanced technology for diagnosis? And number two, what is your protocol for only pulmonary cases which are treated and diagnosed and completely treated? Do you have any follow-up system?
Yeah.
How long?
You're talking in a private sector or you're talking on a public?
Any public sector. You have probably your organization.
Yeah.
Which is the largest probably.
Yeah, so when we do, you're asking for pulmonary TB
Yes,
follow-up after
only
treatment.
Pulmonary. Only pulmonary.
After treatment.
Yes.
So we generally call them at several months, so you can ask.
So you have any protocol?
So there's
somebody comes after 5 years and there is a relapse.
So that's a possibility, but the surveillance is done. Surveillance is recommended as a part of the program. The only thing is that right now the focus is primarily on good diagnosis, early diagnosis, and focusing and completion of therapy. But there is a very clearly laid out guidance for that also, and it is a part of the enrollment, and almost all of our MDR-TB patients are regularly followed up. So at regular intervals. So every patient, there are about 4 to 5 regimens which are now being used, and so every patient has, as per his regimen, to be followed up with specific testing. So it's not that we don't assess them also, we test them also. Right? Any more questions or queries?
After MDR treatment, every 6 months we usually ask to come.
Correct. Yeah, so we can do that. You can call them more frequently also. You can at least stick to that 6 monthly program, or you can call them every 4 monthly. If somebody is a high risk patient, somebody who is a poorly controlled diabetic or an immunocompromised host, somebody where you have doubts about their compliance during the course and you have a feeling that he or she might relapse, there's no harm in kind of calling them more frequently also. Any other queries or questions? Yes, ma'am.
So recently I saw few reports from Hinduja where a patient is multi-drug resistant. And then there is something like whether they are achieving the required concentration levels of the drugs in the blood.
Yeah, so that's called TDM,
Okay.
therapeutic drug monitoring.
So for each drug like they have done this TDM, and so
Right.
if we find though the person is not resistant,
Yes,
but they are not achieving the target levels,
yes.
then what do we do?
That is where all these tests are important. So if you have already sent a sample for culture, you will be able to ask for a drug susceptibility testing. You will have a panel telling you whether susceptibility to a particular drug is existing or not. It will not be an assumption. It will be an objective evidence. That is one. The second is therapeutic drug monitoring regular is not easily available. Probably the entire Western India, I think only Hinduja does it. It's not very costly, but it is basically because of the alteration or because of the hepatic kind of pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of isoniazid and rifampicin in every individual patient. Those are the only 2 drugs which can right now be monitored, and we can assess the serum levels of those drugs. And those are ordered or specifically asked for only when you have some clinical issue in terms of poor responsiveness to therapy or unresponsive, and yet follow-up sampling has shown drug susceptibility to rifampicin. on the NAT test, or if your culture has also shown sensitivity, but as you said, your patient is not reaching that level of plasma concentrations of that drug. Another issue it is commonly found is, we have a lot of malnutrition, a lot of malabsorption syndrome. There are several hypotheses which are coming from the West where they say that Indians have a lot of lactose intolerance also. The protein metabolism in Indians is not so good. And of course, so every race or every genetic lineage would be different and would have a different pharmacokinetic and dynamic kind of a thing for all of these molecules. Generalizations are difficult, and that is why individualized drug regimens are what is the final standard. That is what we want to achieve. So when you have a patient with a lymph node TB, especially lymph node TB, spinal TB, meningeal TB, these are the type of node, and abdominal tuberculosis. They are the some of the most notoriously difficult or slow responders. They are all possibacillary tuberculosis. You don't sample them initially and you treat them empirically. It is not fair in today's times. At least sample them, take a sample and send it for testing. That is important, because then these dilemmas which you and I are facing in our clinical practice will reduce. Yeah? Does that address your query?
Yes, sir. And
Yeah.
one thing was that in the near future, can we think of some test like your last slide showed, like where we don't need to have the sample exactly from that site. Maybe we can derive it from the blood.
Yeah, so we are talking of markers or labels.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is coming in. Everything will come. When you have a whole genome sequence which has been decoded, then it makes that job easier. But again, its applicability at a programmatic level for a country like India, where you have seen the type of numbers, which have already been identified. So let us not talk about, this is an iceberg effect which we are looking at. What you are seeing is only the visible part of the iceberg. The hidden part is not visible only. अपना टाइटैनिक तो कभी भी डूब जाएगा.
The Naya hospital is having medium which is free of cost. Naya hospital.
Okay, I didn't know about it. Thank you. JJ is supposed to do everything. But cultures take a very terribly long time to come. So there are issues with the government program also, but that is for some other day. I'll finish that here. I think that's too much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khar, for reminding all of us about the important role of the laboratory, particularly in diagnosis and treatment of tuberculosis. Thank you. Our next speaker to speak on managing tuberculosis, Dr. Yatin Dholakia. A brief introduction about Dr. Dholakia before I invite him on the stage. Dr. Yatin Dholakia, MD Chest Diseases and Tuberculosis from Mumbai University 1983 and gold medalist in TDD, Diploma in Tuberculosis Diseases, College of Physicians and Surgeons, Mumbai 1983. 40 years broad experience in the field of TB, drug-resistant TB, respiratory diseases, and HIV, AIDS, including clinical care research and training and in-program management and evaluation. Currently, consultant chest physician, Ramakrishna Mission Charitable Hospital, Mumbai, Holy Family Hospital, and Babasaheb Gowde Hospital. Clinical consultant to the Foundation for Medical Research since over 2 decades and involved with various research studies on TB and COVID being conducted at the Foundation. Chairman of the District DRTB Center of K East Ward, NTEP at Andheri East. Dr. Dholakia has published 48 research articles in peer-reviewed international and national journals and 24 oral and poster presentations at various conferences. He is an academic editor and reviewer for various journals. Dr. Yatin Dholakia, please.
Good evening, everybody. My title of presentation is Managing Tuberculosis. We are all clinicians and we know how to treat tuberculosis. And as Swamiji had said, that we need to have a holistic approach to managing our patients. So I'm sharing with you a new paradigm. If soch nahi soch, how to manage tuberculosis. So, when we want to understand how to manage a disease, we need to understand the factors that influence, especially the infectious diseases. So, these are the three factors influencing infectious diseases: the agent, the host, and the environment. We also need to understand what is the natural history of an infection and the disease which is caused by the infection. And we also need to understand the spectrum of presentation. Because TB is not just a disease, it's a spectrum of illnesses. So these are the three factors. It's a triad of infectious disease, it's a host, the agent, and the environment. The agent-related factors are the virulence of an organism, the capacity of an organism to actively create disease, and its pathogenicity. The host-related factors include a person's innate immunity. A person is born with an innate immunity, and also an adaptive immunity which occurs either after a natural infection or a vaccination. So this is an adaptive immunity. We also need to understand the host's comorbidities. Comorbidities such as diabetes, comorbidities such as HIV infection, people on steroids, cancer-affected patients who are on chemotherapy, chronic kidney diseases, hepatic involvement. So these are all, and of course, their malnutrition also needs to be considered over here. And people who use tobacco, alcohol, and other narcotic substances, so they are also susceptible. So we need to look at the host factors also in assessing infectious diseases. And main important is the environment in which the relation between the host and the agent occurs. That is the amount of ventilation that is there in a place where the two meet each other. The overcrowding, which is also a very important cause of transmission, and the quality of air. So these are the factors which are influencing the infectious disease. Now, if you see the natural history of TB infection, when a person gets infected, exposed, right? So what happens is there is the dendritic, the germ enters, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis enters into the dendritic cells, which are the part of the natural immunity, and it can result in elimination of the bacteria totally, right? What happens is if either the person is also BCG vaccinated or has an history of past infection, he has developed an adaptive immunity, which is a cell-mediated immunity, which is normally carried out by the T cells, the CD4 cells, and that can lead to three issues. One is either it can eliminate the bacteria totally, the adaptive immunity. It can, if the adaptive immunity is not so good, then it can progress to active disease, right? So you have the active disease over there. And if there is a sort of a balance between the agent and the body's immunity, then it can lead into an initial control. So all this occurs between 4 to 6 weeks of infection. Later on, as the person advances in life, the immunity may reduce and the latent tuberculosis can happen to progress to either, again because of factors which are related to body's nutrition. If there are no comorbidities, patient can eliminate the bacilli and become cured. If the immunity is reduced, then it goes into an active stage of tuberculosis. Or again, if there is a balance, then it may lead to a lifelong containment of the organism with bacilli which remain dormant in the human body. Now, I hope everyone can see this slide. This is a slide which gives you the spectrum of tuberculosis. This is a new paradigm which is happening in recent times. If you go through literature, the tuberculosis has been classified into various stages. Dr. Parag Mehta has also elaborated on how to undertake the diagnosis. Can everyone see this slide? Yeah. So the first is the latent TB infection, where the sputum culture and molecular tests are negative. The patient's chest X-ray is normal. You identify the patient either by what Dr. Mehta said, the site TB or the IGRA test, and we'll see what we can do about that. Then, if the latent TB progresses, then what is known as a subclinical disease spectrum happens. The patient is either asymptomatic, he is bacteriologically negative, or what is known as incipient disease is said to be present. The patient can also be asymptomatic, but he can become bacteriologically positive by either the smear is positive, it may be negative, but usually the culture is always positive in cases who are bacteriologically positive and subclinical in stage. And molecular diagnostics may also pick up such cases. Right? So X-rays show minimal abnormalities, and these patients are identified through active case finding services. We'll see how to manage them. There are no proper guidelines because this is a new paradigm. There are no proper guidelines as to what treatment should be given to them. The first type of asymptomatic cases could be kept under observation. Sometimes, if the site TB is positive, the IGRA is positive, then there's a tendency to put them on TPT, that is tuberculosis preventive therapy. We'll talk about that and Dr. Neha is here, who will also speak on the TPT. Then we go on to the active form of TB disease. So this is a clinical disease which is bacteriologically negative. So all three types of bacteriological tests like the smear, the molecular tests as well as the cultures are negative. Then you have, and the X-rays will show minimal abnormalities. Sometimes you will need an HRCT test to identify these cases. The other form of active tuberculosis is clinical bacteriologically positive cases who may be smear negative but are rapidly picked up by the CD-NAT tests and the culture tests. Right? And the symptomatic clinically smear positive tuberculosis with extensive disease, all three types of bacteriological examinations are positive. X-rays will show extensive abnormalities with cavities, and all the three types of tuberculosis can be identified in our institutions through passive case finding. And the last but not the least, what is more important is after the patient gets cured of tuberculosis, what is known as post-TB disease. There are symptoms, but the smear may be positive, the gene expert or the TrueNAT may be positive, but these are always culture negative cases of tuberculosis. So even though there are symptoms, the patient is not infectious and he is not suffering from active tuberculosis. The X-rays will show extensive abnormalities. So, and there is a post-treatment assessment. There was a question on how will you assess. So the program has guidelines that after completion of treatment, every 6 months the patient has to approach the treating facility and get symptomatically examined for his symptoms and get an X-ray done, and if necessary, a sort of a sputum examination by a gene expert should be done. And of course, Dr. Rachana had mentioned about the pulmonary rehabilitation, which we will elaborate. Now we'll go into all the 3 stages. How do we manage transmission? Now, as we had seen that there are 3 factors which affect infectious diseases. So, one is the source management of the infected person. So, that is by finding that patient early, diagnosing him appropriately, and treating him early and effectively. So, early detection, active case finding is the norm. All persons now in a hospital facility like us, where all persons who attend any of these departments, especially the medicine and the respiratory department, should be suspected of having tuberculosis and screened for tuberculosis. Then there should be contact examination of all existing TB cases on treatment, and of course creating awareness amongst the community about the low frequency and weight loss and all those things, and inviting them for getting examined at the, and of course we've spoken about the public-private partnership. So that is involving early detection. Now diagnosis, Dr. Parag Mehta has already elaborated, and I would like to stress, again he has also said that any opportunity from the surgical faculty, this specimen has to be collected both in formalin and in normal saline, and in the normal saline specimen has to go in for bacteriological investigation, because surgical intervention can happen only once. A patient cannot be subjected to a surgical intervention twice. So this has to be a norm for all the surgical faculties over there. And then radiological examination to diagnose subclinical tuberculosis. Radiologically can be either a simple chest X-ray or a HRCT. Effective treatment, we will see how to manage that. Use of standard care, monitoring treatment adherence and response, and managing comorbidities, which is very important. As Swamiji had mentioned the case in the morning about the diabetes and tuberculosis. The patient was of the DRTB case, and he had come with this high HbA1c, and we treated him effectively. Patients with CKD, that's chronic kidney disease, HIV/AIDS, and other compromising conditions like cancers, patients on steroids with asthma, and then what is important is post-directed treatment like vaccines and medicines, which can also be used in treating these cases. So that is regarding the source management, the management of the identified TB patient. The other important management is like environment management, control of airborne infection. So that is essential when we are talking about control of tuberculosis universally and achieving the global NTB targets by 2025 and now 2030. So any patient who is coming to our institution, there has to be a triage. All patients with active cough and all should be kept separate. They fast-tracked into the specific OPD, and the surgical as well as the medicine separation should also happen. Then isolation of patients who are infected. infectious should also happen. We tend to admit tuberculosis patients in ICU, which is not a very good thing to do, because in ICU we have patients who have other comorbid conditions, they are seriously ill, so there's risk of transmission of infection happening. So other factors, environmental factors include good ventilation. There should be adequate air exchanges. We need to at least 6 to 12 air exchanges per hour happening in the room that we deal with cases. Ultimately, if that is not possible, then use of ultraviolet UVC lights should also be taken into consideration. And then, of course, personal protection. You've always seen me in this hospital wearing a double mask whenever I come and see in the OPD and taking my rounds. That is very essential for all healthcare workers. To prevent getting infected, you need to use an N95 mask, and for the patients, you should have a triple layer mask to prevent them transferring infection to others. So that's regarding the environment management. And then, of course, host management, adequate control of the risk factors, comorbidities such as diabetes, CKD, HIV, tobacco smoking. Nutrition management is also very important, as Dr. Mehta also said that sometimes malnutrition reduces the drug levels in the blood, so we need to control them. Both macro and micronutrients should be used. And of course, immunization, adult BCG, which is now being undertaken in the National TB Elimination Program, and newer vaccines can be used. So I take this opportunity. So managing latent TB infections, the aim is to prevent progression to active disease of an already infected person. So we have, Dr. Leah will speak to you at length on the treatment of TB infection, the TPT, for both drug susceptible as well as drug resistant tuberculosis, and what the newer guidelines say. There are newer vaccines which are under research and development, which can be used to prevent the progression of infection to active disease, and manage, of course, again, comorbidities, malnutrition, alcohol, tobacco use also should be essential in managing the latent TB infection. I will digress a little bit over here and talk about vaccines. The ideal vaccine strategy for tuberculosis includes 3 components: the prevention of primary infection and disease after exposure. So this is the BCG, the novel BCG vaccination which we give at childbirth, and then of course now the adult TB vaccination. There are vaccinations which can be given after exposure. Then there is a vaccine which can be given for prevention of the reactivation of latent tuberculosis, and there are vaccines which are under study which are sometimes also used. Immunotherapeutic vaccines which are adjuvant to the standard TB treatment for patients' recovery. The types of vaccines are 4 in number. COVID has taught us many things. So we have the live attenuated vaccine for, of course, that's the BCG, which is the initial immunization of the newborn, and secondary adult vaccination. We have the inactivated vaccines used as adjuvants to TB treatment. Let's show some figures on that. Recombinant BCG vaccination. The viral vector vaccines to enhance the immune effects of BCG, and DNA vaccines for pre and post exposure prophylaxis of tuberculosis. Now, if you see, there are these 5 vaccines which are marked. If you can see the one on the second last column is Ruki, which is a therapeutic vaccine which can be used along with TB treatment, and it helps in faster sputum conversion as well as good response to TB treatment. Of course, these are all, many of them are still under phase 2B and phase 3 trials. The last one in that, the last row in that column shows BCG vaccination, of course, this is the vaccine which is now being used. Then you have this vaccine from Cadila, which is prevention of disease vaccine, which is under experimentation. Then you have this MVAC. Now you must have heard of Sepsivac, which was used very frequently amongst COVID patients to improve their immunity and prevent serious adverse reactions to COVID. Sepsivac is MVAC, which has been effectively used in leprosy also, as well as it is used by some of the senior TB specialists earlier who as an adjuvant to anti-TB treatment. So this is also a good candidate, which is again being researched in some places globally. And then again there is this M23, the last one, which is the prevention of disease vaccine. So there is a good scope for managing tuberculosis and completely. So that's regarding the vaccine issue. Coming back to the tuberculosis management, how do we manage active tuberculosis disease? So the principles and the aims of anti-TB treatment. One, our aim is to cure the TB patient, to prevent death from active disease and its late effects, to prevent relapse of tuberculosis and decrease the transmission of disease. So we need to have effective fast therapy. So a combination of all these things which we need to do need to be instituted. The basic principles of treatment are provide safest, most effective therapy in the shortest possible time. So we talk about the longer and the shorter treatments also. Multiple drugs to which the organism is susceptible. So what is important is that universal DST is essential in diagnosis. The main thing of stressing is if a patient is not responding to treatment or a patient needs substitution of therapy, if you want to remove a drug from the regimen, never add a single drug to a failing regimen because this will amplify resistance to the other drugs also. And what is more important is ensure that people adhere, take each and every dose that they have been prescribed. And we always use a combination of drugs not in the form of single medicines, but you have to use fixed dose combination because sometimes people like us even forget to take medicines and they may give rise to monotherapy, which will give rise to resistance. Of course, everyone knows that there are two phases. The initial intensive phase where maximum stabilizing effect happens, where all the active organisms are killed, and that second phase is the continuation phase. So you want to eliminate the remaining bacilli, which are either not dormant, but they are slow replicating bacilli, and so that brings us to the basis of multi-drug therapy. If you see, there are the logician way back has classified metabolic types of bacteria as those that have continuous growth, those that have spurts of metabolism. So they are lying, they are persisting, and they are sleeping, and they are having multiple spurts of activity. Those that are intracellular and those that are never growing but dormant. So INS and rifampicin and streptomycin, they act on the continuous growth of on the first part. Pyrazinamide acts in the acid environment, and rifampicin is the only drug which acts on organisms which are dormant most of the time but have spurts of activity. So that's why if you see, and the material, the infectious material has all these types of metabolic organisms in at the same time. So we need to tackle them all together, and that's why this combination of therapy is essential. So that if you understand this principle, then the idea of giving this multi-drug therapy is taken well off. So everyone knows about these drugs, anti-tuberculosis drugs. First-line drugs are 5 isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and streptomycin. Streptomycin is now no longer used except under certain circumstances. Then we have the second line agents like the injectables, the fluoroquinolones, ethanamide, cycloserine, terazole, PAS, linezolid, clofazimine, and then the newer drugs, betaquilin, delamanid, and pretomanid. So I think Dr. Rashna has already elaborated on this, but I need to reiterate. Drug susceptible tuberculosis is when the mycobacterium is susceptible to all first-line medicines, including rifampicin. Drug-resistant tuberculosis are rifampicin resistant only to rifampicin. There is H-boro resistance, IRS resistant. Then you have polyresistant, resistant to more than 2 drugs, but not rifampicin and INH. FDR is resistant to both INH and rifampicin. Pre-XDR is MDR plus resistant to fluoroquinolones or SLI. And XDR TB is MDR plus fluoroquinolone resistance plus 2 any of the group A drugs in medicine. So we come to what are the group A drugs? So the group A drugs include fluoroquinolones like levofloxacin, moxifloxacin, betaquilin, and linezolid. Those are the abbreviations from the last column which we should be universally using. The group B drugs are the cycloserine and clofazimine. And the cycloserine, there is another analog which is known as steroidosone, which is has less side effects and well tolerated, but is not readily available. And the group C drugs are ethambutol, delamanid, pyrazinamide, and imipenem, celastin, meropenem, amikacin, and streptomycin. You can use ethanamide, prothionamide, and paraminosalicylate acid, and the newer drug pretomanid. One thing I would like to draw the attention to all physicians present over here. We are using a lot of meropenem in our clinical practice, and a lot of sometimes imipenem and celastin in our clinical practice, which may, if the diagnosis of tuberculosis is not made, there are chances that the TB germ can become resistant to this drug. Right? In the ICUs, every alternate patient is being put on meropenem. So that needs to be taken in that light, that we are generating more of drug resistance. And the 3 new drugs, already we are seeing a lot of betaquilin heteroresistance in the program, in the environment, from the Foundation for Medical Research, we have been observing through multi-center studies. So we need to take care of what we use and how we use. So these drugs, like levofloxacin, also there is a mandate that we should not use commonly in treating dermal infections. This also should be taken into consideration. So this is a very busy algorithm, and I think Dr. Danta has also elaborated on this. So if you see on the right hand side, if you do the diagnostic tests, and this also is in your folder, so no need to click pictures for this, right? So if the rifampicin resistance is not detected by any of the methods which Dr. Mehta has described, then you go on to the standard regimen of 2 months of rifampicin, INH, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol, followed by 4 months of the 3 drugs. In the meantime, you test for H resistance. If the H resistance is there, then you replace the isoniazid with levofloxacin. Now, if you find additional levofloxacin resistance, then you can use linezolid in that case. Right? And so if H resistance is not detected, then you continue with the same line of treatment. Okay? And if you see on the left hand side, if rifampicin resistance is detected, then as Dr. Rashna mentioned, if the age of the patient is less than 14, then he is not eligible for the BPAL regimen. So you usually, and there are certain guidelines which say that if the patient has not taken bedaquiline for more than a month, and if the patient is a new case, then one can put them on a shorter DRTB treatment, which is about 9 to 11 months, and so that is that. If he is eligible, then he goes on to this linezolid, levofloxacin, clofazimine, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, high dose of INH, and 6 to 9 months of bedaquiline, followed by levofloxacin, clofazimine, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. If he is not eligible for the 9 to 11 months shorter regimen, then he has to go on to the 18 to 20 months of longer regimen, which includes three of the group A drugs, bedaquiline, levofloxacin, linezolid, and two drugs from the group B, that is linezolid and clofazimine and cyclosidine. So this is the overview of. And if the patient is more than 14 years, then if the patient has not taken any treatment in the past or does not have been exposed to bedaquiline for more than a month, then you give what is known as the BPAL regimen, that is bedaquiline, BPAL or BPAL-N, one can use, that is bedaquiline, recommended linezolid and moxifloxacin. There is an option to reduce the dose of linezolid after 8 to 12, 9 months? 9 weeks, right? But one can, if it is tolerated, it can continue for the full duration. So that's the BPAL regimen. Okay. And in any case, if you find any additional resistance during the course of treatment, then it goes on to longer treatment. So, in short, this is what I have typed over here. This is the DSTP regimen. Is normally of 6 months. In cases of extrapulmonary tuberculosis like skeletal tuberculosis, TB of the spine, TB of the abdomen, and genitourinary tuberculosis, we normally increase the duration to 9 months. And for CNS tuberculosis, it can be given for a year. The DRTB regimen has been listed. I've already shown over there, so I am not. So the newer paradigm is post-directed therapy. Now you can see 5 columns over here. One is the granuloma formation structure. That there are not many drugs which can be used. These are all at the experimental stages. If you see the post-directed therapy on the second row, there are medicines which can be used to enhance the intracellular bacterial killing. And what is important is vitamin D3 has a very effective hold to play over. And that is autophagy. It induces autophagy and killing of the bacteria. There are drugs which are anti-inflammatory in nature, which can be used. And again, of course, I would not recommend. One is prednisone, which is, I'll come to that later on also, which can be used as an anti-inflammatory agent. There is vitamin D also can be used, and ibuprofen also is being used as an anti-inflammatory agent to control tuberculosis. We also are in a process of studying at the Foundation for Medical Research the effect of inflammation and nutrition, the interaction between that, and what we find that in the initial stages where the inflammation is high, nutrition has not much role to play. It does not have help in increasing the body weight, but that's still under the conceptual. Then improving the cell-mediated immune response, metformin, statins have been found to be helping in improving the cell-mediated immunity. And then Lastly, there is this, if you see my last line, therapeutic vaccination. MVAC is shown to improve the treatment response. So this is as far as the management of tuberculosis is concerned, and it is not complete unless you manage the comorbidities as well. So we have diabetes mellitus is as a major role in affecting the TB epidemic. As you know, diabetics are 3 times more prone to develop tuberculosis. They are poor response to treatment. Chances of relapses are very high. Therefore, it is essential that we control diabetes efficiently and effectively even after stopping TB treatment. This has to continue. HIV/AIDS, it's an old epidemic now. So you start the TB treatment first. If he is newly diagnosed HIV/TB co-infection, then you start the TB treatment, and then you start after 15 days after starting therapy, you start antiretroviral therapy. If the person is already on antiretroviral therapy, then you can continue with that. We think there are chances of high risk which can happen during that period, which we should be able to take care of. Chronic kidney disease, again, rifampicin managed is safe on a daily basis, whereas pyrazine and ethambutol have to be given in low dose on alternate days, depending on the serum creatinine level. Malnutrition has to be addressed, and nutrition rehabilitation. Now the program has done a study on energy-dense nutrition supplements, and papers are not yet out, and recommendations are also not yet out, but this will be coming soon. Micronutrients like vitamin A, vitamin D, and vitamin C have also been in the literature, which can be supplemented with patients of tuberculosis. Substance abuse has to be addressed very effectively, because not only it affects the TB treatment, but also adherence has to be maintained. And so counseling, de-addiction, and rehabilitation of these cases should also be focused on effectively. So all this needs a sort of a holistic approach on managing tuberculosis. It's not that we as clinicians just prescribe HRZD and for HR and lay ourselves back. So I think managing the ADRs, we are all experts. Side effects and adverse drug reactions contribute to treatment interruptions and may lead to poor treatment responses and drug resistance. They need to be anticipated first and then prevented. Like educating regarding discoloration of urine, body fluids, and skin in patients with clofazimine therapy. Initial gastrointestinal disturbances are usually self-limited. Patients need reassurance regarding them, and of course, telling them that what to expect after starting therapy. If there is hepatotoxicity, which is a 4-fold increase in enzymes or serum bilirubin of more than 2 mg/%, withhold the anti-TB treatment and resume after the LFT normalizes. The way we resume is give individual drugs, ethambutol first, add pyrazinamide, add rifampicin, and INH. It has been shown that INH is the most hepatotoxic drug when given after rifampicin. So that is the way we should introduce the drugs individually over 3 days in 4 doses. Most of the time we find that the patients will tolerate all the drugs later on, and then you can go on to the full FDCs. And sometimes we need to withdraw the pending drug and replace it with either fluoroquinolone or anything else. Now, if there is severe TB in case patients who have hepatotoxicity, then one can start after stopping other drugs with ethambutol and levofloxacin, and sometimes streptomycin can also be given to control the tuberculosis. Hypersensitivity, itching with rash, treat with antihistamines. If no response, stop and start individual medicines to identify. Right? If the drug is essential, then you need to undertake desensitization to drugs from low dose and elevate the drugs to higher drugs. visual defects is very this thing. We have to ask the patient every time he visits about his color vision and visual acuity, because ethambutol, once it develops optic neuritis, it is normally irreversible. Of course, arthritis and arthralgia are common. Pyrazinamide is the most common effect for offending drug. So you do serum uric acid. If there is high serum uric acid, you may either continue pyrazinamide with uricosuric agents, or one can reduce the dose of pyrazinamide. Additionally, I have not mentioned about the second line TB drugs over here. The most common side effect we see with the second line TB drugs is with linezolid, which causes severe peripheral neuropathy, right? And it can also cause visual issues, and it can, of course, apart from discoloration of the nails and discoloration of the teeth, it can also lead to serious myelodepression with severe anemia and platelet and red blood cell count reduction. So that needs to be looked at. The other common, of course, side effect with clofazimine, as I mentioned, is discoloration of the skin, which needs again reassurance. Bedaquiline was touted to be a very toxic drug, but what we have seen that patients tolerate it very well. But you have to monitor with ECGs regularly to look at the QTC intervals, and also we have to look at the serum electrolyte levels, so that because we are using it in both bedaquiline, clofazimine, and moxifloxacin, they tend to increase the QTC intervals. So we need to monitor these patients regularly till the treatment is going on. So these are the major side effects, adverse reactions. If you have observed anything else, one can ask. The other important thing is use of steroids in treatment of tuberculosis. There are no absolute indications for using steroids except in Addison's disease, where the levels of steroids need to be supplemented. In CNS tuberculosis, especially in meningitis, steroids are used to reduce the intracranial pressure. With pericarditis, to pericardial effusions, to reduce or prevent constrictive pericarditis. Iris, as I was mentioning, immune reconstitution inflammatory syndrome. In HIV/AIDS, when we start TB treatment of ART, then there is a flare-up of the tuberculosis lesions which happen. This is not due to any drug resistance or anything like that, but it's due to this reconstitution. The CD4 cell counts start improving, and there is a reaction which happens. And then, of course, what is known as a paradoxical reaction also is known to happen mostly in children and in people with lymph node tuberculosis. So you see, when we start TB treatment, there is enlargement of lymph nodes in the initial stages, or even during later stages, and there might be patients who come with pleural effusion. So these are all paradoxical reactions, and that need to be looked at, and then steroids can also be given in controlling these reactions. So the other important factor which we need to look at is surgery in tuberculosis. So diagnosis. Surgery is required in cases of non-productive cough. Surgery in the form of bronchoscopy is required, where we use the bile liquid to undertake the diagnosis. We have in our hospital a bronchoscopist. Dr. Pratik Agarwal is one of our chest physicians, so he does bronchoscopies regularly. Pleural effusion, aspiration, pleural biopsy can be done. Pericardial effusion, tapping has to be done. Lymph nodes, you need to do FNAC, excision biopsy. Synovial biopsies in case of bones and joints, and GUT, genitourinary tract, and abdominal biopsies are required as required, done as required. Therapeutic use of surgery in case of pleural diseases like hydropneumothorax and pneumothorax or plain pneumothorax, intercostal drainage needs to be done. In cases of lymph nodes which are not responding or large in size, block dissections should be done. In skeletal tuberculosis, especially in spine tuberculosis where there is neurological involvement of the bladder and lower limbs, then spine surgery is essential and should be done. Bronchial arterial embolization should be done in cases of hemoptysis. Again, patients who have non-responders to TB treatment, who's persistently smoking positives, then thoracoplasty can be done. It's a very old sort of surgery which used to just collapse the lung so that the patient's response improves. And in CNS, VA shunts, ventricular atrial shunts can be used. And of course, post-treatment, you have to, we need surgery in cases of pleural thickening, where decortication is done. Pleuropneumonectomy is in case of destroyed lung. The patients come with repeated secondary infections, large hemoptysis. So pleuropneumonectomies need to be done. And when patient has symptoms of constrictive pericarditis, pericardiectomy is to be done. These are some of the surgeries which should be done in tuberculosis. Now, coming to the last this thing, managing post-TB lung disease, PTLD. Right? So, post-TB effects like TB, especially when diagnosed late, leaves a lot of lung damage, post-tissue damage permanently, and it transits from a treatable disease to a chronic morbidity in both adults and children, and it increases mortality. So we need to institute post-TB management in the form of pulmonary rehabilitation, vocational rehabilitation, and palliative care. Vocational rehabilitation, many people lose their jobs during treatment, and therefore vocational rehabilitation is essential. Pulmonary rehabilitation of those patients who have respiratory issues. What is pulmonary rehabilitation? It's a comprehensive intervention based on a thorough patient assessment, followed by patient-tailored therapies that include, but are not limited to, exercise training, education, and behavior change, designed to improve the physical and psychological condition of the patient with chronic respiratory disease and to promote long-term adherence to health-enhancing behavior. So that is the WHO definition of pulmonary rehabilitation. Aims and objectives are to decrease in physical and psychological impairment, increase in physical and mental fitness and performance, and maximum social integration of the patient. So these are the methods which we employ. We have a full-fledged pulmonary rehabilitation in our hospital. The assessment, we do the 6-minute walk test, sit-to-stand test, breathlessness assessment using the MMRC, dyspnea scale, quality of life using St. George's Hospital health-related quality of life questionnaire. Then step 2 is management of the respiratory system, cough and sputum management, breathing exercises. Then step 3 is exercise training, upper and lower limbs, strengthening and endurance training. And then lastly, patient education, promote behavior change, smoking cessation, optimize nutritional status and vocational guidance. So these are the expected results. There is minimal or no improvement in pulmonary functions. However, the patients feel it improves their quality of life, reduces the number of hospital admissions and other measures of healthcare utilization. There are psychosocial benefits and longer pulmonary rehabilitation programs are effective. So we complete the full spectrum of tuberculosis by using this management paradigm. And so in conclusion, TB in humans presents as a spectrum. Managing TB begins from prevention of transmission to managing the post-TB sequelae. That's a continuum of care. A multi-pronged approach directed at the agent, host, and environment is needed for effective management of the disease. And for elimination of TB, thus we see that all stakeholders should work in unison. Thank you for your listening. Yeah.
Thank you for this. I just want to ask you that we are sending lymph node analysis. We not only ask we ask for
Yes, it is essential that you ask for because sometimes the granuloma may not be hit. You get hit. So you need to ask for both actually, because if the gene expert is negative and the patient has some other pathology, you will miss that if you don't ask for histopathology. So you have to ask for both.
It is lung surgery where it is done.
This is Dr. Chandrakala. She is the expert in arranging. CDDB used to do it. Dr. Lalit Anandi was there. He used to do it. But, right. So if someone can support Dr. Banushali Thane, he's doing it. It's quite expensive, but if you can raise support. Dr. Shirodkar also does it in Kalwas. Lung surgery is not very fascinating as compared to bypass surgery. So less cardiothoracic surgeons do it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hilakian, for elaborately explaining from medical point of view as well as practical point of view as to how to manage TB effectively. Thank you so much. Our next speaker on prevention of TB, Dr. Neha Nalauri. I'll briefly introduce her before inviting her onto the dance. Dr. Neha Nalauri, committed community medicine specialist with good aptitude for public health and research. She is an MD community medicine from GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai. And a state rank holder, she stood 5th. She has done her MBBS from Government Medical College and Hospital, Aurangabad. Currently, she is working as a WHO consultant in Mumbai since last 2 years. Dr. Neha Nalauri.
Yeah. So very good afternoon to one and all. Myself, Dr. Neha Nalauri. I'm working as a WHO consultant and supporting National TB Elimination Program for Mumbai Division. Okay. As you can see now, our program is named as National Tuberculosis Elimination Program. So previously this program was called as RNTCP, right? So Revised National TB Control Program. So now we are moving towards the elimination of tuberculosis. So that's why it is essential that our efforts should be more intensified when we want to achieve the goal of ending tuberculosis. So now just let us see. I would like to give you a brief definition. What do we mean by elimination of tuberculosis, right? When we are saying that our program is now named as National Tuberculosis Elimination Program. So here the term elimination, it stands for when we'll be able to say that India has eliminated tuberculosis only when there are less than one notified TB case, all forms of TB case per million population in a year. Okay, so this is when we can say that India has eliminated tuberculosis. Okay, so as of now, what was our major goal? That we wanted to end TB. We wanted to end tuberculosis by the year 2025. So what does that mean? So we were having three major objectives when we were mainly trying to end tuberculosis. Our first objective was to decrease the incidence of tuberculosis by 80%. Our second objective was to decrease the TB related mortality by 90%. And our third and the major objective was to ensure that none of our TB notified patient has to pay any or has to bear any kind of cost which is related to either diagnostic of TB or maybe the treatment of TB. Okay, so these are our three major objectives which were mainly aligning towards our end TB goal. Okay. So now I think this slide is already being shown to you. But here I would like to emphasize particularly on the preventive measures which are there in the program. We are so much focused on the diagnostic part and the treatment part that our preventive pillar, which is our major strategy, it often remains ignored. Okay. So now what are the various things that we are trying in this preventive pillar or the preventive strategy? As sir has already mentioned, tuberculosis is considered to be a spectrum of illnesses. Okay, so there are various spectrums. So here we are having two different terms. Okay, so our first term is the TB infection or the latent TB infection, and our second term would be active TB disease, which sir has already shown in his slides. Okay, so now what is the difference between these two terms? When we say a particular individual is infected with tuberculosis, what does that mean? So it means that particularly an organism has entered into the body, but yes, it is lying in its dormant stage. It is not multiplying rapidly. Reason being, our immunity is fighting with that particular bacteria very strongly, and that's why that individual is as of now considered to be a healthy individual which is asymptomatic, but yes, there is a chance that that particular individual is infected with tuberculosis. Okay. So now as per the National TB Prevalence Survey which was conducted in the year 2019 and 2021, it shows that the burden of tuberculosis in all forms of TB of all the ages is around 312 per lakh population. Whereas it was seen that there are few particular population which is considered to be a vulnerable population or at-risk population in which the incidence of tuberculosis, or maybe you can say this particular population, is at higher risk of getting infected with tuberculosis. So one of this population was the older age group, those who were above 55 years of age. In them, the burden of tuberculosis was seen to be 588 per lakh population. Similarly, tuberculosis, it was more in the persons with the comorbidities. To start with, in the malnourished, it was 930 per lakh population. In diabetics, it was around 511 per lakh population, followed by the smokers, which was 853, and by the alcohol users, in which it was 726 per lakh population. Now here there was a characteristic finding in the National TB Prevalence Survey that the prevalence of latent TB infection, it was around 31.4% amongst the total those who were surveyed. So what does that mean? In the general population, out of the total population which was surveyed during this National TB Prevalence Survey, 31% of the population was found to be infected with latent TB infection. Okay, so now can we say that if this latent TB infected individual, if they are not given any adequate protection, these individuals will then transform into the active TB disease patients? Obviously, yes. Okay, so that's why program has also tried to mainly focus on this particular pool, that if we want to end tuberculosis, we have to reduce the transmission. This latent TB infected individual will be our first priority, in which we will be giving them a kind of preventive therapy by which the conversion of the latent TB infected individual into the active TB disease will be curtailed in this manner only. So, based on this, the programmatic management of tuberculosis preventive treatment in India, these revised guidelines were there in the year 2021. So as of now, we were aware that we used to give isoniazid chemoprophylaxis to all the household contacts who are below 5 years of age, right? So we used to give isoniazid for 6 months, a daily regimen to all the household contacts who are less than 5 years of age. But now, what was the newer introductions in this PMTPT guideline in the year 2021? So now this, I think Sir has beautifully explained how is the spectrum of tuberculosis, starting from the latent TB infection, then the subclinical TB disease, then maybe the active TB disease. So we know what is the difference between these two things. First is the latent TB infection part and the second is the active TB part. So yes, all the individuals who are infected with tuberculosis, it means they are healthy, they are not having any kind of symptoms. They cannot spread the TB bacteria to others. They may be having normal chest X-ray and a negative sputum smear. But yes, during the course of time, at any point, if the immunity drops, what happens is, now these latent TB infected individuals get converted into active TB disease patient with the classical forest symptoms, with the abnormalities in the chest X-ray, and also now these patients are symptomatic. So now, if you want to prevent this conversion of latent TB infection into active TB disease, now what are the various measures which are being implemented in the program? So here let us see what is the risk of developing TB disease. If any particular individual is infected with TB infection and if there are no other risk factors, the chances are about 10% over the lifetime that this individual will get converted into active TB disease. Now on the other hand, let us see the second scenario. Any individual who is infected with tuberculosis infection and now he is also having diabetes. So there is an additional risk factor which is now added in this. Okay. So in this case, the risk of developing active TB disease, it increases by around 30% over the lifetime. And similarly, the individual, it is also infected with HIV. Now the risk is almost around 7 to 10% per year. The risk of developing active TB disease, it increases by about 7 to 10% per year in case of your TB-HIV co-infection. Now, what is the rationale of giving TB preventive treatment? So, 75% of those who develop TB disease, it occurs within the 1 year of contact, and 97% they develop TB disease within the 2 years of contact with an active TB disease. So, this is the major one thing. Now, with TPT, what is the role of TB preventive treatment? So, with TPT, the risk of developing TB disease, it decreases by 60% and further by 90% among the people who are living with HIV. So, what is the efficacy of TB preventive treatment? Currently, the TPT provides a risk reduction of around 60 to 90% between those who get TPT versus those who do not. And this protection is lasts for between 6 to 19 years. Now, what is the safety profile? A very small proportion of the people on TPT, they may develop serious adverse effects. Otherwise, whatever the regimens which are available in the program, they are completely safe. Most adverse events, they are self-limiting and they are reversible. So, there is nothing to worry about the adverse effects which are specifically related to TPT. Now, there are various newer, shorter rifamycin-based regimens which we will be seeing in our next slide. Now, one important question. Is there a risk of drug resistance if we are giving a monotherapy? Basically, now what are the various TPT regimens? We'll be covering it in our next slide. But yes, is there a risk of drug resistance when we are giving TB preventive treatment? So here, one important thing it is to be noted that before giving TB preventive treatment, it is very crucial and it is most important to rule out the active TB disease. So now what is the algorithm which is being followed in the program? So let us focus on the middle part, that is the pulmonary TB patient. So whenever a pulmonary TB patient is diagnosed in the program, what happens is the NTP staff or maybe the PPSA agency staff, the private agency staff which are mainly looking at the private sector patients, they will get in contact with the patient. They will screen the household contacts for like on the basis of the symptomatic screening, if any household contact is found symptomatic, then obviously that particular household contact enters your diagnostic algorithm. Since it is a symptomatic household contact, it's your presumptive TB patient. Now let us see what happens to those household contacts who are asymptomatic household contacts. So for all those who are asymptomatic household contacts, we further divide them into two parts. Our first part is all those who are below 5 years of age and the asymptomatic household contacts who are above 5 years of age. Now here in this, the strategy which is being implemented in the program, it is slightly different for these two age groups. For all those who are below 5 years of age household contacts, what happens is you can initiate them on TB preventive treatment, but before that you have to rule out the active tuberculosis. Now how will you rule out the active tuberculosis? Yes, by subjecting them to chest X-ray. If chest X-ray is normal, then maybe you can initiate them on TB preventive treatment. Now let us see what happens to the household contacts who are above 5 years of age. So as of now in the program, Mumbai was implementing a test and treat policy. So now what does this mean? Test and treat. So all those who are above 5 years of age, we used to first test them for latent TB infection. If they are positive for latent TB infection, then maybe you can consider them. So this latent TB infection testing was done. As of now, it was done with the help of IGRA test, which was available through the program. But now there's a newer test which has been implemented. So that will be discussing. So if your IGRA test or maybe the CYTB test, which I'll be explaining it to you, if it is positive, what does that mean? That particular individual is having latent TB infection. So now this particular individual is your eligible individual for TB preventive treatment. Again, you can initiate them on TB preventive treatment, but before that, you have to rule out the active tuberculosis with the help of chest X-ray. So all the individuals who are positive with the CYTB test or maybe with the IGRA, they will be again further subjected to chest X-ray. If your chest X-ray is normal, then only you can initiate them on TB preventive treatment. If your chest X-ray is abnormal, then again this household contact enters into your presumptive TB cascade. So now what is the CYTB skin test which is used in the program, and it has been recently launched in the program, I think in the month of December 2024. So it's a next generation skin test which is used for the detection of TB infection. So the composition is one dose consists of 0.1 ml, the dose is 0.1 ml, and it consists of the two specific antigens which are related to tuberculosis. First is your ESAT6 antigen and the second is the CFP10 antigen. Now what is the indication of this particular test? Yes, it is used for the detection of TB infection. As of now, under the programmatic guidelines, like whatever the guidelines that we have received, it is applicable to the household contacts or maybe to the individuals who are more than or equal to 18 years of age. Okay, so as of now, the approvals which we have is for the individuals who are more than or equal to 18 years of age. So you can advise CYTB test for detecting the TB infection among the high risk population or the vulnerable population who are more than or equal to 18 years of age. Okay. Now what is the dosage? We know it is 0.1 ml. The technique is more or less it is similar to that of your Montu test. It's a skin test, 0.1 ml intradermally, okay, on your forearm. It will be injected or it will be administered. Now when is the interpretation done? Interpretation is done once the solution is administered into the forearm of a beneficiary. The beneficiary is called after 48 to 72 hours. So there is a duration which is mentioned here. The beneficiary, the reading of this particular test, it is to be done within this duration of 48 to 72 hours, not before 48 hours and not after 72 hours. Okay. So now what is the interpretation of this test? If the induration is more than or equal to 5 mm, then only this test will be considered as a positive CYTB test. Now here we have to ensure that we are measuring the induration and not the redness which is there at the site. Now how will you measure the induration? Obviously when 0.1 ml dose is administered at the forearm, when you call that beneficiary after 48 hours, you have to palpate it. So there's a thickness or the thickening of the surface which will be seen. So that you have to mark it and you have to measure the induration and not the redness which may be there at the local site. So if it is more than or equal to 5 mm, then CYTB test will be considered as a positive test. It means that individual is having latent TB infection and now you have to rule out the active tuberculosis. There are certain storage conditions also, 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Now where is this CYTB test available? It is made available in the program completely free of cost to all the household contacts of the pulmonary TB patients. And eventually program is also trying to expand it to the other risk groups or the other vulnerable groups. Okay. So now what were the various tests which were available as of now for detecting the TB infection? We know the Montu test or the standard TST test. Then we also had the IGRA test. And now currently in the program we are having the CYTB test. Now what is the additional benefit that CYTB test is giving to us? CYTB test, it is considered to be a more specific test, and yes, as it is a more specific test, the chances of false positive results amongst your BCG vaccinated individual, it will be very less in your CYTB test. Okay, so basically in the Montu test, there were many false positive amongst your BCG vaccinated individuals and also for your non-tuberculous mycobacteria. But that is not the case here in your CYTB test because your CYTB test is specific to the tubercular antigens. Now this we have already discussed what is the strategy for the household contacts who are below 5 years of age. You will be giving them TPT after ruling out active tuberculosis, whereas those household contacts who are more than or equal to 5 years of age, we will be first testing them for TB infection and then ruling out active TB disease. Now what are the various TPT options which are available? Okay. So let us see, first thing which we know, the TPT regimen which is available in the program, it was 6 months of isoniazid which was a daily regimen. So the total number of doses used to be 180 doses. Similarly, now what was the major challenge in expanding this particular regimen? So the challenge was on the parts of the adherence or the compliance which was associated with this. Obviously बेनिफिशियरी यूज्ड टू थिंक कि अगर टीबी हो रहा है तो टीबी का मरीज भी 6 महीने के लिए ट्रीटमेंट ले रहा है एंड ऑन दी अदर हैंड कि हमें टीबी ना हो, टीबी से बचाव हो, इसके लिए भी हमें 6 महीने के लिए दवा लेना पड़ रहा है. So to address this particular thing, what happened in program is a newer regimen was launched in the year 2024 itself, which was the 3 HP regimen. So here 3 stands for the months, basically it is for 3 months. H stands for your isoniazid and P stands for rifampicin. So it's a combination of isoniazid and rifampicin and it is a weekly regimen. हफ्ते में सिर्फ एक ही बार लेना है. So here in this particular regimen, 3 HP regimen, the total number of doses are only 12 doses. So the number of doses they have decreased from 180 doses to just 12 doses. Okay, so obviously here we can expect that the treatment adherence part or the compliance part from the beneficiary side will improve and we will be able to successfully complete this TB preventive treatment. Now these TPT options are mainly available for the contacts of the DSTB index patient. Okay, drug sensitive TB patient. Now what are the TPT options which are available for the household contacts of DR-TB patients? Okay, so first here you can see the contact of MDR or RR-TB patient, who is basically the index case should be acute susceptible. So in this, what is the TPT option which is available in the program is the 6 months of levofloxacin. Whereas for the contacts of isoniazid H mono-resistant patient, the TPT option which is available in the program is 4 months of daily rifampicin regimen. So these are the dosages of 6H regimen. Age 10 years and older, 5 mg per kg per day, and the age 10 year below 10 years, we will be giving 10 mg per kg per day. So now here in the program we are having 3 HP regimen. Particularly as of now in this talk we have a FTC of isoniazid plus rifampicin 300 mg, 300 mg. So we are mainly covering the household contacts who are above 14 years of age, just because the drug which is available in the program, it is a fixed dose combination of isoniazid and rifampicin 300. So that's why as of now we are giving 3 HP regimen to all the household contacts who are above 14 years of age, and all those who are below 14 years of age we are still continuing with the 6 months of isoniazid. And lastly, yes, everyone knows about the Nikshay, which is a web-based and case-based software. In this particular application, the entire journey of the index TB patient, and it is not only about the index TB patient, also the context of this index TB patient. So the entire journey is captured in this particular software, right from the presumptive stage, what were the various tests which were done, and if that particular test is positive, what is the treatment stage that patient is on, what are the various results of the various comorbidities, what is the status of the Nikshay Poshan Yojana, and finally, what was the treatment outcome. So the entire journey of a patient is captured in the Nikshay, which is a very promising software that program is implementing. And lastly, there is also a Nikshay Setu app, which is an e-learning platform to enhance the capacity on National Tuberculosis Elimination Program. So you can always download this version, and whatever the newer updates are there in this program, you can always have an access to this particular, whatever the newer updates are through this particular app. Now there's also a TB Arogya Sathi app, which is for both citizens as well as for the patients. For citizens, it will give you the general information on tuberculosis, symptoms of tuberculosis, basically the awareness part for the normal citizens. Whereas for the patients, your TB Arogya Sathi app will help you, like the patients who are registered under the Nikshay, they can get the access to the additional information. Basically, the patient can mark his or her own adherence in this particular app, also see what is the treatment progress details, and also the patient can himself put the bank accounts as a part of direct benefit transfer which program is providing. And yes, lastly, I would like to end with that ending tuberculosis is everybody's responsibility. So I would request you all that obviously we are doing best from our part. We are mainly trying to diagnose and treat our patients, but there is this preventive component also which is more important. Okay, thank you so much.
That was Dr. Nehana Laude explaining so beautifully the preventive measures to fight back tuberculosis. Thank you so much, Doctor. Last speaker for this evening, Dr. Mahesh Patil. May I request Dr. Mahesh Patil to please come in the dais. So Mahesh Patil is from the District Tuberculosis Office, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Khar.
Good evening, everybody. Most of the topics have been already covered. All the my topic is patient-centered approach. Most of the strategies or policies which are devised by the program are patient-centered. So, whenever a patient is diagnosed, public health department or PPS agencies do public health actions like all the household contacts are contact tracing is done for the all household contacts who are close contacts of the TB patients. So, to benefit the close contacts to get investigated, all our 24 wards have received handheld X-ray machines which are undergoing AERB registrations. Then it will be operational. So we'll go in the field and we'll be doing the screening of household contacts or to work as a TB-free workplaces. So those X-ray machines will be utilized. Then screen and manage comorbidities. To manage comorbidities, why it is important? It has been already emphasized by sir and ma'am also. So UDST to offer, Mumbai is already offering upfront NAT to all the TB presumptives. Then Nikshay Poshan Yojana is there, in which Government of India is giving 1,000 rupees per month till the patient is on treatment. Previously it was 500 rupees per month, but from 1st November 2024 it has been increased to 1,000 rupees per month till the patient is on treatment, and this benefit has been given to all the patients, whether the patient is taking treatment from public sector or private sector. And this benefit is given to the patients to their account, not in cash, but it is given as a direct benefit transfer. Patient has to give bank details and the money is transferred to those patients' bank details. Now they get first installment of 3,000, and after 84 days they receive next installment of 3,000 again. And if patient continues beyond 6 months, then every month he or she may get 1,000 rupees per month. So this is Nikshay Poshan Yojana. Then counseling of people affected with TB. All our TB staff are trained in counseling. Plus, at all our DRTB centers, trained counselors are there, which train our TB patients and their family members regarding the side effects of TB medicines, why to continue the total duration of treatment, how to take the medicines, what are the side effects, and how to anticipate them and find out earlier, so that you can either modify the treatment so that the permanent damage can be stopped. So all the patients plus their households are counseled regarding this. And prevention of TB has been already talked by Dr. Neha ma'am. So psychological counseling and stigma mitigation is also done. So for all the TB patients are identified a family member as a treatment supporter. The treatment supporter has been guided or counseled regarding the medications. The patient, if patient forgets to take medicine, the TB supporter has to remind him. Or our system is also there when we monitor adherence. We have Nikshay software where adherence is monitored. We can see our staff can monitor with the dashboard. All the patients who are taking treatment from their center, they monitor it on dashboard. If patient is not taken medicine if he sees consecutive for 3 to 4 days that patient has not marked his adherence, then our staff calls them to check whether they have taken medicine or not. If not, then if the patient is not responds to call, they have to visit the patient's home and to verify that whether patient has taken medicine or not. So this is monitored. All ADRs are monitored, and early detection of ADR and management of ADR is done through the program. In all wards, we have ADR clinics also to manage the ADRs. And new entities there, differential TB care, where we all our healthcare setup are overburdened with the more patients. So they have to prioritize whom to refer to the higher centers for IPD or for OPD. So for that, differential TB care is implemented in program. Then is nutritional support. Pradhan Mantri TB Mukta Bharat Abhiyan, which was started in the month of 9th September 2022 by our Honorable President Draupadi Murmu ji, in which that's a concept where a Nikshay Mitra, he may be an individual, trust, corporate, who adopts the patient, TB patients. Means in addition to 1,000 rupees per month, additional nutritional support is given to the patient, in which a food basket is given where 3 kg of cereals, 1.5 kg of pulses, 1 kg groundnut and 1 liter of edible oil is given. In addition to that, from November, it has been modified that any donor can adopt whole family also. Not instead of only patient, but family also. So that is the concept, and here I would like to thank Ramakrishna Mission Hospital. Since the inception of this concept, they are supporting 50 patients every month. So I would like to thank Ramakrishna Mission Hospital for supporting our patients. Nikshay Yojana already I have told. Counseling and comorbidity already I have discussed. So this is a repetition. This is differential TB care where all patients are monitored, like these assessed at the time of treatment initiation and then followed up monthly, where some parameters are monitored and entered in the Nikshay, like pulse rate, temperature, blood pressure, respiratory rate, oxygen saturation, height, weight, and BMI is calculated. Mid upper arm circumference, pedal edema, general condition, icterus, hemoglobin, WBC count, random sugar, HIV, and X-ray abnormality. So when after entering these details, when we calculate the risk level high, medium, low, it prompts, and depending upon the risk factor, the clinician takes the decision to where to refer the patient to a higher level for IPD or for OPD levels. This already I have discussed. So this is regarding TB patient-centered approach. And one more thing, for pediatric patients, our drug FDC formulations are dispersible tablets and formulated, like flavored tablets. So the adherence is compliance is also improved. So every year on 24th March, World TB Day is observed. Every year WHO gives a theme for every year. So this year's theme is, yes, we can end TB, commit, invest, and deliver. We have to commit for TB-free India, investing by our time and efforts, so that all the patients, those who are presumptives, should be tested, plus maximum efforts should be made to bacteriologically confirm the TB case. Maximum try should be done to get the sample and deliver the results. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mahesh. But I now request Dr. Swami Dehadevanand Maharaj for his closing remarks.
Namaskar. We have been here for more than 4 hours in this campus. I know everybody is busy in their schedule, and out of their busy schedule, they took out their time to be present here. It was a wonderful day of learning for all of us, I suppose. We could understand tuberculosis as a whole, as stressed by all the speakers. What is required is this holistic approach and proper support. When we say support, it's not just supporting some physical needs, food, medicine, but there is something higher faculty, mental support. तुम ठीक हो जाओगे, hope to live. More than that, emotional support. यद्भावं तद्भवति. जैसे हम भावते हैं वैसे ही बनता है. तो हो गया है टीबी, लेकिन इसमें हमको किस भाव से रहना है. So that emotional support. Emotional support, in true words, it should be a devotional support. When you provide proper knowledge, emotion gets converted to devotion. भाई से भक्ति, भगवद गीता में 12th चैप्टर में श्री कृष्ण परमात्मा अर्जुन को जब संबोधित करते हैं, you have to understand Arjuna is representative of all the humanity, we human beings, and Bhagavan Krishna, Sri Krishna, is the Ishvara, the divine highest power, the Brahma Tattva, energy which can be neither created nor destroyed. So that highest energy, which we call as God, when it comes to divine help to cure, it does miracles. Miracles do happen. So just as trying to connect emotion and devotion, we as human beings are basically an emotional being. When proper knowledge enters, our emotion gets converted to devotion. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. With proper knowledge, our efficiency to work becomes more. As a patient, we have to become efficient to tackle the disease. As a healthcare provider, we also have to become more efficient in delivering. So, taking care of this emotional support with proper knowledge. God helps those who help themselves. So, if you can empower the patient with that emotional support, with right knowledge, you have made the patient as a bhakta, as a jnani. Where there is bhakti, where there is jnana, there is no suffering. योगश्च चित्त निरोधः, ऐसा एक स्टेट है जिसको योग बोलते हैं, जहां मन का चिंता सब सोचना बंद हो जाता है. योगो भवति दुःखः, समत्वम योग उच्यते. These are the highest philosophical terms, statements given by our rishis, our yogis, who have experienced. There is a need to understand for all our healthcare providers. Nimitta matram. We are all just a small instrument in the hands of the Bhagavan. तो इसको थोड़ा एहसास करके जब हम अपना ड्यूटी पे जाएंगे, so called duty, that duty, that work becomes worship. It's a great opportunity as a healthcare providers for all of us to provide an excellent care, to convert this work into worship. So I feel we all could imbibe the spirit of seva from this campus, which is serving for more than 100 years, where the direct disciples of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna have lived here, and their disciples, and so many great doctors who have served this institution. So this is the place where excellent monks, excellent doctors who really have a concern for the society have come here together to serve humanity. So I really feel blessed to be part of this CME, and I hope so you also enjoyed this. I'd like to thank Dr. Yatin Dolakiaji for his interest in conducting the CME. Along with him, Dr. Mahesh Patil and his whole team from the district tuberculosis office, who have put their continuous efforts to bring in all the doctors in the nearby area, which included the general practitioners and also some of the senior consultants. We are highly benefited with this CME. We hope to conduct more such CMEs in the coming days. Maybe we'll plan well in advance. Maybe we'll keep on Sunday, fresh morning, half day, where we really will practice holistic medicine. We can practice yoga, pranayam, meditation together, then have healthy breakfast, then have real session where everybody will be there. I call these diabetic children as diet champs. Similarly, we have tuberculosis champions. So, an ideal CME will be where the healthcare providers, the patients, patient family, the newly diagnosed patients' families, and the people who have defeated tuberculosis. I think that will be a wonderful thing to have, and it will be a role model CME that we are going to have. And of course, Dr. Dolaki and Mahesh Patil will work to get that CME points. So that way, we can do it in a bigger way, in a grand way, where more and more doctors can participate and make benefit of this. With this closing note, I stop here. Before that, I make an announcement. They keep on hearing the word holistic, holistic, holistic. Yes, we are proud to inform all the doctors who are gathered here and who are listening to me on our YouTube live streaming, Ramakrishna Mission Khar, Mumbai. I want to say that Ramakrishna Mission Khar conducts regular holistic wellness clinic in OPD room number 10 every day, Monday to Friday, 12 to 2. So we do one-to-one consultation. We provide them one-to-one techniques from holistic wellness approach. It's right from meditation, pranayam, then the yoga practices, then the how to take medicines, talk about the medicine. So I call it as disease self-management education plus yoga as way of life. So every day we are conducting. So anybody who is interested to have a holistic approach for their health and wellness, you are welcome, and it's totally free of cost. Once in a month, we do conduct a special clinic called as Holistic Wellness Workshop. Whole day, morning 10 to evening 5, we dedicate. Morning 10 to 1, we see patients one-to-one individually. 1 to 1:30, we provide them healthy lunch, what you received today here in the afternoon, the welcome lunch prasad. After that, we conduct the session 1:30 to 3:30. Then we again give them a closing drink called kada or kashayam. So that you will be enjoying now. I say, replace your tea, coffee with kada. Kada is anti-inflammatory. Kada is anti-cancerous. Kada improves your metabolic system. Kada is the best mood elevator. तो एक शब्द मैंने काढ़ा के पीछे जो बोला उसके ऊपर हर एक के ऊपर एक रिसर्च पेपर है and people who have practiced they say yes it is so and the top clinicians they agree. So kada is a wonder drug which can be prepared at your home. So again we have a YouTube channel in that it's mentioned. Those who are interested you can go and see how to prepare kada at home. One of my doctor came saying so I'm now nearing 50. I've been running around so many hospitals. I'm gaining weight, a lot of body pain here and there. Then I asked how many times you have chai or coffee. They said 5 to 6 times a day. I said, can you replace your tea, coffee with this kada? She said yes. And she did for 2 months. In 2 months, 4 kilos weight was reduced and her body pain was gone. Similarly, one more patient who had IBS, who came to our wellness clinic. Completely IBS reversed. So these are the things which I call as out of the books, out of the box. So holistic wellness can give results which are out of the books and out of the box. It all depends how you understand and practice. As I told, just not emotion but devotion. Devotion comes through right knowledge, dedication and ichha, a desire to practice. So with this note, now we will be enjoying kada in place of chai. You will be enjoying some healthy snacks, namkeen, biscuit, kurkure, chips ke jagah mein, of course vada pav ke jagah mein. We will be giving you buna hua chana, roasted mungfali with salad, healthy and tasty salad with all the nutrients. So enjoy kada and healthy snack. Once again, I take this opportunity to thank you all for being with us and it's a wonderful learning day for all of us and we hope to conduct more such CMEs in the coming days. And special thanks to all the speakers who gave wonderful presentations and for their valuable time. And once again, my special thanks to Dr. Nitin Dolokiazi, Dr. Mahesh Patil, and whole the team from District Tuberculosis Office for having made this a great successful CME. Thank you, Ananda. Namaste. We'll give Jai. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Jai Mahamai Ki Jai. Jai Swamiji Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Today is again a special day, Hanuman Jayanti. Jai Shri Mahavir Swamiji Ki Jai. Our next holistic wellness workshop will be on May 10th. Previously, we used to conduct every month first Saturday. Few people requested they want on second Saturday. So we will be having our holistic wellness workshop every month second Saturday. For May month, it will be May 10th. So those who are interested can come, get your reports, whatever it is, at 10 o'clock. Then attend the session 1:30 to 3:30, and let us march towards holistic wellness. Thank you, Ananda. Namaskar.
And